Hi everybody, welcome. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a Season 8 Rakan guide for League of Legends. So I already have another Rakan guide. I'll link it in the description that talks about just general overall strategies. Now, I made that Rakan guide. I'd only played like 1 or 2 Rakan games like right on release because someone donated to have me do that ASAP. So this is going to be an update to that, talking about what I've learned, especially recently after playing Rakan in a lot of games in Season 8. So we're going to be talking about just an overview of his abilities, the current state of the abilities after some of the nerfs and buffs over the past 9 months or so, what I recommend in terms of leveling up, like how to play him, things like that. We'll talk about his overall strengths, weaknesses. Then we'll start talking about the new runes. We'll go into which runes I recommend in different situations. I have an in-depth breakdown of why I chose each rune, why I think it's useful, how it works with his kit. And then we'll talk about his item builds. Now, Rakan is extremely flexible with his items. He can build almost anything in the game. We'll be talking about the items that he's most likely to build. That's still going to be a lot of coverage. And he's a very, very situational champion. He can adapt to almost any situation and be very valuable and strong, which is why I also rate him as one of the 2 champions that I chose as best one-trick champions in my one-trick video. If you haven't seen that, I can go ahead and put that in the description as well. It's been very popular over the last week or so. But Thresh and Rakan were the 2 champions that I said are the best one-trick champions as support. It's because they're very versatile, they're very resilient, they're good in almost any meta if you're good with them, and it doesn't really matter which items they nerf, they're always going to be able to find a reasonable build path. Unless they get directly nerfed a lot, then they're still going to be viable. But because they're very difficult to play, Thresh a little bit more so than Rakan, then it's unlikely that they're ever going to have a super high win percentage in the greater population because most people just won't play them correctly, which gives them resilience to nerfs as well. They're less likely to be nerfed in their current state. Rakan was nerfed a few times earlier in the season because pro players were using him a lot, but I still think that he's not that likely to get nerfed. He hasn't been played in recent pro tournaments, although I think he is extremely strong, so we'll talk about all of that as we go through that. And then at the very end, we'll talk about the matchups, best matchups, worst matchups, so on and so forth. He doesn't have a lot of really bad matchups that are just unplayable. Okay, but let's go ahead and start with his ability. So we've got Rakan pulled up here. So Rakan is an interesting mix of Enchanter and Engage champion. There's not really anyone that's like him. Like I said, the closest analogy would probably be Thresh, in that they both have... their kit can be offensive and defensive in different situations. I would say that Rakan has higher scaling than Thresh, which is really important because he kind of doubles as an enchanter because he has very nice shields with his E, and he also has a heal with his Q. And he has a shield with his passive that scales off of AP and plus healing and shielding. So I think that that makes him a better scaling champion than Thresh. Thresh is longer range than Rakan, but Rakan has much more mobility than Thresh does as well. So Rakan has much more reliable engage and escapes, but Thresh potentially could make even more outplays with his Thresh and his hook. Or with his hook and his flay. I'm going to make a separate Thresh video though very soon, probably right after the Rakan video. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a champion video every week or 2 as much as I can. It takes a lot of research, a lot of time to do these, but I really enjoy them, and I think a lot of people on the channel do too. Okay, so the first thing to note, which is very important about Rakan, is he's ranged, and he shares this with Thresh as well, and it's very annoying. So he only has 300 range, but he counts as a ranged champion, which sucks. It would be so much better if he was just straight up a melee champion. And the reason for that is because he's ranged, he can't use Relic Shield. And he would love to use Relic Shield because the extra HP early would be awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That gives him a lot of extra tankiness, a lot of extra sustain in lane if he could use Relic Shield, but he can't. So he's kind of relegated to using either Coin or Spell Thieves, and I think you should pretty much always go Coin because his auto attack range is so low and he doesn't really have good harass that you're just not going to get that many Spell Thief procs. Although he does use AP very well, I think you're just leaving too much gold on the table. And I just don't think he's a good early poke pressure type of champion to really leverage the extra damage that you get off of Spell Thieves. So, you know, yes, the AP, if you go into and fully complete the Eye of the Watchers, the AP is nice in the very early game. And you'll see pros and challenger players potentially rush the Eye of the Watchers because games are going to be over a little bit quicker there than they will be in low Diamond, Platinum, and lower than that. So you might still see some of the top end people get Eye of the Watchers, but I don't recommend it for most players just because it's a very limited power window. And I've talked about this when I talked about coin. It's a very limited power window that you really have to leverage. So from about, you know, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how the game's going, you're going to be stronger if you rush Eye of the Watchers because that AP is really going to take off. But after that, coin is going to take over the game because you're going to have so much extra gold. You're going to complete your items faster. And you're just going to accelerate your power spike throughout the rest of the game and just overtake anyone that went Watchers on Rakan. So I think that for most people, especially because it's hard to coordinate teams to play around that power spike, you know, between that 15 to 20 minutes when you complete Eye before coin starts taking over in terms of effective gold value, I think it's better just to go coin. You're going to be much better late game. And he scales very, very well with items. A lot of different items. He has really, really good scaling. So I would just go with coin. I mean, if you go coin, you're going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2,000 to 2,500 gold earned off of that item most of the time. And versus Eye of the Watchers, especially once you get out of laning phase, you're going to get under 1,000 off of Eye of the Watchers. So you're getting an extra 1,000 gold off of coin in most games. And if you think about, yeah, you get 35 AP. That's really the only appreciable difference between going something like Eye of the Watchers and either Eye of the Oasis or Talisman. You know, you're going to get that 35 AP, which looks like it's a really good value, right? 761 is like, wow, that's a good value. But keep in mind that something like Eye of the Oasis, if you want to use that as the analog, is 300 gold more as well. It's 2,200 gold instead of 1,900 gold. So you do minus 300, and it's like, okay, well, I'm up 461 gold. And I've done this in past itemization videos, so I won't go too far into this. But 461 gold is not much gold when you're thinking of coin, because every coin that you pick up is going to be 40 gold. If you're grabbing, you know, 2 gold, or 2 of those per 1 minute, which is a really conservative estimation, you know, it's going to be overtaken in like 5 3/4 minutes. So it's going to be overtaken in like 5 minutes and like 45 seconds or so. So you're not going to be earning as much. You're going to get the same 2 gold per 10 off of both items, and you're just not going to earn much off of Spell Thieves out of the laning phase. So after, you know, 10 minutes, you're just not going to be earning much. So it's like 5 3/4 minutes, it gets overtaken. And it's already, and that's, you know, assuming that Spell Thief doesn't make any gold, but you're also going to be earning more over the first 10 minutes as well. It's just going to be less. It's not going to be that full 80 gold advantage per minute because you are going to get some Spell Thief procs off, obviously. So, you know, it might be closer to 40 to 50 gold per minute advantage. But either way, it's going to get overtaken. And I've done the math on it before with Rakan in the first video, I think. It's going to get overtaken, you know, somewhere between the 15 to 20 mark in most games. Okay, so he is ranged. He can't use Relic Shield. Your option is Spell Thief or Coin. You should almost always go Coin. They nerfed the mana regen on Coin. Doesn't matter for Rakan. He doesn't have mana problems early on in lane. And that's really it, as far as I remember. They just nerfed the mana like 3 times on it. But he doesn't have mana problems. The gold is still the same. The health regen is still the same. And you still get the early CDR off of it. So, still a very good item. Okay, so his passive, he generates a shield every now and then, which is decent base shield and 90 AP ratio, so he's very, very good with AP on this. And you'll notice this throughout his kit as we talk about it. He has really good AP ratio. So he has a 0.7 on the shield here, a 0.9 on the shield here, and then effectively a 1.6 on his E, which is just insane scaling as far as his shielding and healing. His damage is a little bit less so, 50-50 on both of those. So his damage doesn't scale that hard with AP. He's not really a damage champion, but his shielding and healing does scale quite hard. Whenever you damage an enemy champion with a basic attack or ability, it reduces the cooldown. Now this includes multi-target hits, I believe. So if you use an R and you tag, you know, 3 different champions with that, then that would reduce it by 3 seconds. And now if you hit 2 champions with 1 ability, like with his W, at the same time. I'm not sure if that triggers once or twice. But either way, it's not huge, but it's nice on the engage to have a little bit more tankiness about you. Not a ton, but a little bit, and then it helps you through the laning phase. Just landing a couple of basic attacks, landing a Q every now and then, just helps you with some trades in lane. So it's decent. It's decent, but it's not anything game-breaking, but it's pretty decent. You don't have to do anything extra to play around it. It just happens. So it can happen while in combat. So you can get this shield back while you're in combat, which some shields like this, like Malphite's, don't regenerate in combat. His does. So just in the middle of a fight, you just keep fighting, just keep landing your autos, keep landing abilities, and you'll just, you know, get this shield back fairly often in long fights. Okay, his Q. His Q has really bizarre scaling, and pros don't really have a great consensus on how many points you should use in this. Some people put 3 in it in lane. Some people put 1 point in it in lane. It kind of depends on the lane. But in general, I favor having this as your 1 point wonder because the healing doesn't scale with levels or with points that you put in it. It's only your damage and the cooldown. So it has 900 range, which it feels like it's a lot less than that. It's a very skinny radius. So it's kind of tricky to hit this. It does not splash. So it's not like Karma's Q, so it's really bad for wave clear. So, you know, don't try to use it to wave clear. It's only going to hit 1 minion. It does fairly low damage. I mean, I guess it's like average damage, 70, 115. It gets up to 250. It's like okay damage. It starts off with a 12-second cooldown. Eventually gets down to 6. You'll find this with a lot of Rakan's abilities as he has a pretty high starting cooldown for a lot of his abilities, but then as you level it up, then it goes down quite a bit. So it's really important which ability you choose to level. And this makes cooldown reduction extremely good on him too, because his abilities have such long base cooldowns. Even at the highest, once you level it up all the way, hey, thanks for the sub, I appreciate it. Even once you level it up all the way, it still is 12-second minimum on his 2 big abilities, and then his Q is 6 seconds. So CDR is very, very good on him. So you get the extra damage, you get the cooldown reduction, but you do not get any extra heal. So even if you have 1 point in this or 5 points in this, it's the same amount of heal. And that's why I think it's best as a 1 point wonder. And that scales based on your champion level, not the amount of points that you have in Q. So it's decent. Now it's important to recognize that this is area of effect. So this does come into play, you know, in team fights sometimes, or if your team's clustered around Baron, you want to try to be able to, if 2 people are ranged standing next to each other, for example, you want to hit your Q and stand next to both of them so that it hits all 3 of you with a heal. So, you know, around level 9, hitting 3 people with this is 270 heal, which is pretty good. And then a 2.1 ratio with your AP, because each person has a 0.7. So that's pretty good. So it's decent. You know, if you're in a tough lane and you want to get an extra point or 2 in this, it does lower the cooldown, you know, down to 10.5, so you can land more of them. It doesn't cost any more mana to do it, and it does let you trade back a little bit of damage. But if you do that, you're sacrificing your mid-game mobility by not getting as much Grand Entrance or your mid-game shielding for team fights. So unless you're just in an extremely difficult lane, I really wouldn't level this up most of the time. I think it's just easier to just get a couple of rejuve beads, because you're going to get 1 rejuve bead that's going to go into your coin item, and you're going to get another rejuve bead most of the time if you want to build either Redemption or Banner of Command. And we'll talk about why you would do either one. But you can go double rejuve bead and second wind if you have to, and that'll get you through most difficult lanes that have a lot of poke, like Karma, Lulu, Sona. And that should be good enough to get you through that, and then just hitting an occasional Q. So I don't think having that extra 1.5 second cooldown is really worth sacrificing other points, because that's really what it comes down to. The damage is not going to matter against a lot of those champions early on. You're not going to be winning the poke war with them. You're just going to be surviving. And if it's an all-in affair, so if you're looking for, you know, all-in damage with someone like Draven or Callista early game, you know, this scales the exact same as damage, the W, which is what I recommend that you level. So that's the exact same deal, right? So you're not losing any damage by leveling W instead of leveling this. You know, you're just sacrificing, you're basically getting 1.5 second cooldown on this. And you're sacrificing 1.5 second cooldown on this. So it's the same thing, it's the same damage, it's the same cooldown reduction. Just the question is, do you want just a little bit more sustain in lane, because this one sustains you and this one doesn't. So, but this one gives you mobility. Let's go ahead and talk about this one. So this is Grand Entrance. This is what I recommend that you level. Now, this does go up in cost. It's not something that you'll want to spam. But it does go down to 12 seconds. And the importance of this ability is not only that it engages, but that it also allows you to move around the map. So you can do this, and it's basically, it's not quite like having a flash, but it's pretty dang close to having a flash. A free flash. Which is obviously really powerful. So if we go to a map here. So if we go to a League of Legends map here, having that mobility is massive because you can do so many little tricks with it. First of all, it helps you escape ganks. So it's, you know, it's going to be up more often. So sometimes if you're level 9, you know, you can go in, try to engage on somebody, something weird happens, you know, you can jump out with your E and then your W will be up much faster so you can jump away again if you need to. Another thing you can do is get deeper wards with it. So if you have that, you know, you can walk up. Typically, with most supports, you would just be able to ward right here over the Dragon Pit if you're on red side. Be able to ward over here on the Dragon Pit. But if that Blast Cone is there, if you ward over this wall and the Blast Cone's still there, you can actually W over the wall and get a ward here and potentially here, and then Blast Cone back out. And then you'll have your W back after you do that so that you can W back over this wall and get into here to catch the wave, because it's likely going to be pushing into your AD carry while you're warding. If they're not being ridiculous and dying, you know, 2v1 in lane, if they're backing up, which they should be. But yeah, so that allows you to get really deep wards as Rakan, which is an excellent combo with Ingenious Hunter plus Zombie Ward. Because that's going to allow these wards to zombie up, and you might even get to keep them even longer. You might even be able to get a control ward in here, or even just a zombie ward in here. It'd be excellent. Because people very rarely check this bush. It's one of the least checked bushes in the game. So if you just put one of your Sightstone wards here, you'll get about 4.5 minutes of vision. Actually, more than that, you'll get 5 minutes of vision. 5.5 minutes, because it's 2.5 for the normal ward, and then zombie wards last 3 minutes, so you'll get 5.5 minutes of vision in their jungle right here. It's unlikely to get cleared. A lot of times people won't even check this bush. So that zombie ward could stay in there for, you know, a minute or two also. So you can get some really, really nice vision in here of the jungle with Rakan, and that's something that he can, you know, normally do. Now, if you don't level up your W, however, you're going to have that 18-second cooldown, which means that if you come over here and then blast plan over, you may not have your W left to come back over here, so you're going to have to walk around the long way, miss experience, so on and so forth. And when you level it up, it allows you to get to hot situations quickly. So let's say that, you know, you're over here, and they're about to 4-man dive middle or something. Or whatever. You can just like run over here and then W over this if you need to, or W over this wall, and then, you know, come over here and help, or come over here and potentially like flash engage with your ult. So it just allows you to have the mobility to get away from stuff, and then potentially have your W back for engages, or just keep chaining your W together to move around the map. So if your team, you told them not to fight at Baron because you had to back and just sort of hold the area. Of course, they're fighting. You can run down here. You know, you can like W over this wall to get there faster. W over this wall to get there faster. There's just a lot of... It gives you a lot of extra mobility. In addition to giving you damage for all in. So it's just really nice. Gives you damage, gives you all in, gives you more CC. You know, if you have this down to 12 seconds with 40% CDR, you're going to have about a 7-second cooldown, which means you can use it multiple times in fights. So I think that's just the best option. Another option that you can do is leveling up your shield. Your shield is very nice. And there's not a consensus with this with pros. Like, some people level shield, some people level W. A couple of people put, you know, 2 or 3 points in Q in lane. Almost nobody levels that all the way up to 9 though. Or to 5 points at level 9 rather. This is what I used to level first, and you know, you would think as a shielder this would probably make the most sense, right? Because it gets the shield up pretty high. I mean, 150 doesn't look like a big shield, but remember there's 2 150, so it's actually a 300 shield with a 1.6 ratio. Just for comparison, Janna now has a 210 shield with a 0.7 ratio. So he has more than double her scaling off of AP in terms of shielding. And he has like 50% more base shield. And each one of these is basically a flash. So he gets to dash away from things and dodge things while he also gets a shield. So this gives him mobility to jump over walls and to engage fights, and this gives him mobility to reposition in fights. So he could potentially, he's one of the only champions in the game. I mean, he's kind of similar to Yasuo, I guess, in this sense. They're both situations are kind of conditional. But he can get like 3 flashes, pretty much. So you can like W in, E back out, and then E to another target to get really far away, or you can W out and then like double E to get away. There are just so many different combinations of E and W that you can use. And you get 5 seconds to recast it as well. So it just gives him an extreme amount of mobility to get away from stuff or to engage and to just move around the battlefield. You can dodge skill shots with the E. You can, if you turn on your R, which we'll talk about in a second, you can actually E to go, and if you cross over somebody while the quickness is on, then that actually charms them. So if you W in, charm one person, another, roamer comes out of a bush or something, comes after your AD carry, you could potentially, while this is on, E to one of your other frontline allies, maybe run over somebody else that you didn't hit with the initial W, charm them, then you can E back to peel off your AD carry, and you'll charm the person that's going after your AD carry. Or you can flash and then E back to your AD carry and charm them. So there are a lot of different variations you can do with this. But it does trigger the R if you E, and as you're Eing towards somebody, you move over them. So that's pretty cool. The same is true, obviously, of W. Most people know about the W. That's his main engage. You R plus W. It charms them immediately as you touch them, and then they're automatically going to get knocked up. So it's like, 1.25 second knockup, or total crowd control duration. But a lot of people don't realize that if you E onto people, if you E towards somebody, it also counts. So that's a pretty good interaction. So this has very nice scaling, has very nice mobility. The core problem is you can't do it just randomly around the map. You can't jump over walls with it unless someone's there to help you. So it's like a Lee Sin E. And a lot of times they will leave you hanging on that. And so it's really important to, I think, to be able to have that mobility, especially around the map, with the W. It also deals a bit more damage, which is kind of incidental in my mind, but just having the mobility around the map and having more crowd control in fights with your W, I feel most of the time trumps the shield, although the shield is very nice. They're both very, very good. And that's why I think you don't want to level this Q, because these two are so powerful that it's just not worth it to have a slightly better laning phase for those Q points. But yeah, if you are going for a heavy shield heal build, you might build your E first. So if you decide that you want to build, Ardent, Censer, Redemption, Mikael's, the kind of the standard shield build, then you might actually want to go for leveling this up first, because you're going to have a lot of extra plus healing and shielding. But if you're going for something like Banner of Command early, or like Ruby Sightstone into Locket early, or something like that, then you don't necessarily need to level this up, because you're not going to have that much plus healing and shielding anyways. Although the points in it don't matter as much on that front, because you're still going to get the plus 80% shielding regardless of what the base is. It really comes down to what do you want your cooldowns to be? Your unfettered mobility plus crowd control, or your shield more often. And so unless you're going for a lot of the plus healing and shielding, I'd rather have the extra mobility and CC rather than the shielding. But it's totally debatable. Pros disagree about this all the time, and they build different things all the time. So he's, very, very versatile. But you'll want to level up one of these first and then one of these second. Like I said, I recommend W for most builds. If you're going the heavy shield build, then you might want to go for the shielding. But I mean, another argument for the shielding is, obviously the plus healing and shielding does affect your base. Your base heal and shield. So yeah, most circumstances, if you start with Banner or Locket, then you want to go W. If you start with Ardent or Redemption, then you'd want to go E, potentially, if you just want like a real easy guideline there. Okay, finally we have the ult. Now the ult was nerfed, so it has a much smaller collision radius than it used to. I think it used to have 200 or 250 even. collision radius, and this means that it's harder to hit multiple targets on that initial, like, dive in with your W, but you can still run around and tag other targets if you want to. It just makes it a bit harder to do that. Which is fair. I mean, he was pretty overpowered, and they nerfed his shield too. It used to be a 190 shield, which was very oppressive. But each time they've given him compensation, so they lowered the cooldown on this. I think it used to be 130 or 140, now it's 120. It goes all the way down to 80. So it has a lower cooldown, so you can use it more often. It's just harder to make it multi-target impact, like, immediately than it used to be. And then when they nerfed the shield, they buffed the W to give it more damage, which is kind of whatever, but it's nice. He needed it. He was overpowered, so. Anyway, so this has a lot of applications. So this is both offensive and defensive, which is sweet. So it has a pretty low cooldown. Whenever you run over somebody, you get 50% extra movement speed. It charms them, which means that they walk towards you and they're slowed by 75%. And you can only charm a champion once in the 4 seconds. So you can't just sit on somebody and keep charming them. But you can charm multiple people. And the charm duration lasts, you know, between 1, 1.25, and 1.5 seconds, which is nice. And it does some, you know, pretty low damage for the most part. So it's not a heavy damage ability. But... you know, the combos that I just talked about that you want to do is you R and then W onto somebody. And that will instantly charm them and knock them up. Or you can E, move around, knock people up. Now, another thing you can do also is you can E onto somebody. So this is like the E-W-E combo. So you E, let's say that you have, this is good if you have a frontline tank. So if you have like a Sejuani that goes in, you E onto the Sejuani, and that'll get you to their front line. And then you press R, W, and that'll get you to their back line. So you can E to move up 550 range, R, and then W to dash up an additional 600 range. So you could go up to 1150 engage range for the basically almost instant W for the ERW onto them. For the really fast W, you have 1100 range. Of course, then you can flash to increase that range, or you know, if you E onto the Sejuani, maybe they're close to the enemy frontliner. Maybe the enemy frontliner is something like a Darius. You can press R, charm the Darius, get 50% movement speed, and then just run at the back line, W them, tie them up for a little bit, and then E back onto your team. But you have to be careful doing things like that. You don't want to go too far ahead of your team, because if you don't have an E to get back out, so if you go in with your RW, and your ally just runs away, or you chase too far and you don't have an E back out, it's really easy to die. Because Rakan's not going to be nearly as tanky as something like an Alistar that has a similar effect, or a lot of other engaged tanks. So he relies very heavily on Wing in to start a fight, and then being able to E to get back out. So he wants to dance in and dance out. That's why it's called Battle Dance. You know, he wants to move around the fight and not really stand still and take a lot of hits. So, you know... you got to get used to that playing Rakan. If you're used to playing Alistar or other like really tanky engage champions, then you're gonna be in trouble if you try to play him that way. You need to get back out, and it's not worth it for him to itemize mega tanks. So you don't want to stack something like, you know, Dead Man's Plate plus Randuin's plus Adaptive Helm. I see people talking about that with Rakan. You really don't want to do that. That's a big waste of his scaling and his mobility. So you really need to learn how to play him as you know, a highly mobile enchanter engaged champion. You don't want to try to turn him into a super tank. If you want to play a super tank, just play Alistar. The big thing about Rakan is the couple of big things are his mobility, his ability to make a bunch of different kinds of plays, and his scaling with his plus shielding and healing. So if you aren't really taking advantage of his mobility or his plus shielding and healing, then you're really not playing to his strengths. So you need to play a different type of champion like Alistar. There's nothing wrong with that. Alistar is very good right now as well. It's just a different style of champion. And Alistar is better at doing that style of gameplay, whereas Rakan is better at mobility and scaling. Okay, so you have to figure out how to play around this. It takes a lot of practice. Usually the best thing to do while you're learning it is just RW onto a squishy priority target. Either E onto somebody to get close enough, or just start the fight with an RW, and then just immediately run back to your AD carry. not run back, but like get back with your battle dance. So you are W in, you hit that Yasuo that's too close, or that Varus that's too close, you know, trying to get a last hit on a minion. You are W in, as soon as you charm them, knock them up, you know, maybe auto attack them once while they're going in the air, and then immediately get back out with your E. And then throw a Q on them, of course. So anytime you W in and you're going for an engage, whenever you knock somebody up, or even if you miss, be sure to hit them with that Gleaming Quill, because that's a free hit. It's point blank hit, so you really should not miss that. And yeah, it won't do a lot of damage in theory, but it will give you that extra heal that's delayed. So it is actually pretty nice that it's delayed early on until you get back to somebody, because when you engage in, you go for your W, maybe the AD carry auto attacks you once or twice, or somebody else hits you with something. Then whenever you E back out to your AD carry, it's going to heal you up. So that's nice. And remember, your E does not heal yourself, so it's not a Lee, or does not shield yourself. It's not a Lee Sin E. It's similar, but it does not shield yourself, so it only shields your ally. Which means you have to be careful shielding as well, which I didn't mention, into area of effect things. So if you try to go in and you're low and you try to shield somebody who's going to get hit by a Ziggs bomb, then you're going to die trying to do that, because you have to get close to them to shield them. And that's something I struggled with when I first played Rakan, is a lot of times I would E in to try to save people from area of effect abilities, and I would just get blown up myself. So you want to make sure that it's safe for you to go in and E them. If you're going to die trying to save them, just don't do it most of the time, because a lot of times you're just going to hand over a double kill. So he's not really the type of person that can extract people as well as Janna can. He kind of can. He can help people out, but it's a bit harder to do it. So just be aware of that. And a final note here is you can use this defensively. So the first champion that you hit gives you 150 bonus movement speed over 1.5 seconds. So if you get into trouble, if they come up and, you know, crowd control you in the enemy jungle and they're about to kill you, you can W to quickness, get that movement speed, and then, or R to quickness, get that movement speed, W, and then just run away. And so you can get away from a lot of people with quickness if you have to. Obviously, you'd rather use it offensively, but if you're going to die, it is actually a pretty decent escape tool. So he has 3 different escape tools. W to get away from, you know, anything just about, E to get back to allies, and then your R to get a huge movement speed and a disable for 1 second. So he is very, very slippery. And then his Q, of course, can heal him, and his passive gives him a shield. So he's very, very slippery. He's almost like Janna in that sense, but you have to you have to be a bit more proactive in your slipperiness. Okay, so that's basically his abilities. So yeah, you just got to kind of learn it. The key thing that you want to learn is, when do you jump around with your E? How do you figure out what you're going to do with that? And then balancing out the engage, the really nice engage and crowd control that he has with his lack of tankiness and his need for mobility with the E. Okay, there's a lot of gameplay footage on the channel as of around 12:20. Just watch any of the streams from the last week. Even if it's in the future, just go back and watch. All of my streams are saved on the channel. Just go back and watch some of the, if for some reason I'm not playing him, you know, in patch 8.2 that much, and you want to play him, you want to try him out, then just come back and watch this time. I've got tons and tons of footage of him around this time. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about his runes and his itemization. So overall weaknesses: extreme mobility, very flexible itemization and tactics. We'll talk about his itemization here in a second. Great engage, good CC, excellent roaming. So he has a low cooldown ult. He has tons of mobility, like we just mentioned. So he's very, very good if they have an immobile mid laner, like a Diana or a Syndra, something like that. You can very easily, when you're roaming in their jungle, just sneak around and try to go kill them. So if you just backed and got your Sightstone, you've been leveling up your W, you have 3 points in it. Come down here, ward over this wall. Looks clear, W in, ward over this wall. Then you're just like, oh man, Sentra's overextended. You can just run right up here and his W behind her and get in there and get an easy kill with your ult. So it's really, really easy for him to roam, get a kill, and then run back to lane quickly. And then his ult's going to be up again too. So it's very, very nice early on. 120 seconds is about the lowest that most ults are going to get in the bot lane. And because he itemizes into CDR pretty quickly, because he gets the Nomad's Medallion and usually Ionian boots, that means he's going to have even lower cooldown on a lot of his abilities. Okay, so his weaknesses, though, he's very squishy for an engager. You have to be careful. If they have crowd control, he's very susceptible to that, and he will get blown up. So if they crowd control you when you're going in for your engage, they hit you with a Morg Bind, they hook you, or they flay you, or they Leona hit you with her E or her Q, you're probably dead. So you need to be very, very careful of crowd control. He has difficult decisions. I just kind of mentioned that before. That's one of the hardest things to do as Rakan, is to decide when you should go in, when you shouldn't, and how you want to plan your E's, how you want to try to escape, or how you want to use your E to move forward to get a better W. This takes a lot of practice to make those decisions. Very susceptible to CC and collateral damage, so not only getting crowd control, but getting hit by incidental damage. So trying to shield in, getting hit by Zig's Bomb, shielding in, getting hit by Yasuo knockup, or just all of Riven's stuns and area of effect, or just anything, or like an Amumu ult, just anything that's going to do area of effect, crowd control, or damage, you're going to be susceptible to that because you have to get close to shield people. He's relatively low threat pre-6. You can definitely knock people up with your W, and especially if the jungler shows up, and you E onto your jungler and then hit them with a W, you're either going to make them flash or they're probably going to die in that situation. So he is pretty decent at all ends, but he's not the most brutal all-in champion. You know, things like Alistar, Leona, Zyra, there are just a lot of champions that are going to be better than he is in an all-in fight early on. So he's okay, but he's not really that great until you get to level 6 and you get your ult. So he's all right. He's not terrible. You know, he's not like Janna level all in, like ineptitude early in lane, but he's certainly nowhere close to like Leona or Alistar because he just doesn't have the damage early on that they do. And he's not going to take Aftershock as much. You can take Aftershock. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think that Guardian's probably a bit better after playing both. And then there's a few really tough matchups, some of which are very popular. Leona, you have to ban Leona, okay? If you want to play Rakan, if you're going into a lobby and you're thinking, I want to play Rakan, you have to ban Leona right now. Unless she gets nerfed a lot in future patches. She's really just a god-awful matchup for Rakan because she has so much crowd control and you just don't have enough peel to deal with her if she E's onto your AD carry. So, it's just a nightmare matchup. And that's a bad place to be because Leona's the best support right now. Or she's up there. It's like Leona and Taric. As of the preseason and going into the beginning of patch 8.1. So, yeah, ban Leona. Blitzcrank is pretty rough too, but the thing is, if Blitz hooks you, you can W out. He's still going to knock you up with his little knockup punch, but your W is going to go off first. And so you're still going to get that extra, 600 distance before the knockup. So it's not as brutal most of the time, unless if the Blitz sequences his ult correctly. If he hooks you, then ults, then knocks up, then it can be difficult. But a lot of Blitzes won't do that. They'll try to knock you up first and then ult while you're in the air. Okay, so Blitz is still a pretty bad matchup, but Leona is much, much worse. Okay, so, if Leona's banned, you can consider banning Blitz also, but Leona has to go. Okay, Tahm Kench is another one who's kind of tough. I mean, Tahm can't really threaten or kill you a lot, but he can stop you from engaging, so you just kind of, like, bounce off of each other. You're just going to sit there and look at each other in lane most of the time. You are going to outscale Tahm Kench because you have shielding and healing, and he really doesn't, so it stops you from doing one of the main things you want to do as Rakan, which is engage, but at the same time, you can just kind of go into Janna mode if you want and just go for the plus shielding healing build and just outscale him. So you do have options around Tahm, but he is annoying to deal with. Morgana is another one who's kind of tricky. You can work around Morg, though. So if you RW onto somebody and then she black shields them. Now, she has to be quick on that black shield, too, because that's a pretty fast action. So she has to be really quick on the shield. If she is quick enough, you can just run over and get her. So you RW onto the Jhin, she black shields fast enough, you just switch targets and go over to her, crowd control her, and then blow her up. So you can play around it, but she's annoying. Also, if she hits you with that Q when you go in, you're dead, probably. So, and of course her R is kind of annoying too. Usually you have enough mobility to get out of it, but the combination of her having a Q, which is like instant death on Rakan if you don't have a Mikael's Crucible, and her ability to Black Shield makes her kind of a tough matchup. Veigar is surprisingly really annoying as well because your W doesn't go through his wall because it's not a true flash, it's a movement. And so if he just throws that cage on you, you can't get out. Or if you try to engage, like you know, RW onto somebody, he can just throw that cage on top of you, and it's going to make, and the person that you crowd control, and it's going to make it very difficult for your team to follow up, especially melee champions, and it's going to make it impossible for you to get out of that cage. So Veigar is a very, very nasty matchup. You don't want to pick him into Veigar if you can. I mean, you can make it work, but... And then Malzahar is also a tough one. We'll recap those guys at the end, but those are kind of the toughest matchups, is Leona, Leona, Tom, Morg, Veigar, and Malzahar. Okay, let's talk about runes. So you always want to go Resolve. He needs that extra tankiness. He does benefit from AP. You know, I have seen some people say, oh, well, you can go Airy, or you wouldn't want to go Comet on him, but, you know, you could go Airy and all that stuff. But that's not really a good choice, and the reason for that is that I think is that whenever you engage, which is what you want to do first, like, I'd say 70% of the time in a lot of fights, you're the one who starts it off with the R plus W, unless your team has another really, really good engaged champion, like maybe a Sejuani or an Ashe or something like that. You're going to be the one that starts most fights. And so that means that you're going to want to RWN, which is going to put Airy on your target that you go in on. Then Airy lingers on them for about 2 seconds and then starts wandering back. But you don't want to stick around for those 2 seconds. So a lot of times, because your engage pattern is R plus W and then E back out, then your little Airy is going to do a very minuscule amount of damage to the person you engaged on. And then when you go back to shield somebody else, then she's not going to be back yet when you shield to get out. Now, I guess you could shield once to get out and then hold your second shield and then wait for Airy to come back and then shield after the second shield comes back and get a slightly bigger shield, but I just think that it's too gimmicky. Like, a big part about Airy is that, and I'll just pull it up so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. I think I still have the runes up. Maybe, maybe not. Yes, here we go. Revitalize is there. A big thing about Airy, and why a lot of people get her, is she has very good harassment potential early, and she scales later into plus healing and shielding. Okay, so you get a nice little shield, a 30 to 80 second shield, which is good. Has plus 25% AP ratio, but his shield is a fairly long cooldown, and it's usually the second thing that you level in most situations. So your shield is going to have, you know, a 20-second base cooldown a lot of the time, not including CDR, but until you start to get to level, like, you know, level 8, you'll have 2 points in it. So that'll take it down to 18 seconds. And it's not really till you start getting to level 10 to 13 that you're going to really get the cooldown lower. And so for a lot of the game, you know, Airy, you're just not going to be able to proc it a ton on targets. Now, healing, shielding, or buffing an ally signals. Now, one interaction that would be interesting to consider is Font of Life. Now, I hadn't really thought of that until just now. Now, it stays on them for 2 seconds. But if you have... But you're not going to have Font of Life if you go for this build. So what I'm thinking is, if you Font of Life, the healing off of Font of Life counts as a heal from you. So, it does trigger Ardent Censer, just like the old... I can't remember the name of it. The old mastery that did this, Bond of Stone, or Stoneborn Pact, used to do the same thing. So it does trigger Ardent Censer, so it makes sense then that it would also trigger Airy. So in a fight, you know, if you crowd control everyone with your R, it'll put the Bond of Stone, you know, stuff on them for 4 seconds. Then anyone that hits somebody gets healed, and then Airy's going to jump to them. But you're not going to have much control over where she goes. And then also, you're going to have to run Domination for Ingenious Hunter, because you have to have Ingenious Hunter as Rakan, I think, most of the time. And so you're not going to be able to get Font of Life and Ingenious Hunter if you go with Summon Airy. So I think it's just too gimmicky. You don't have a very long auto attack range to proc it in lane. You only have your Q to proc it in lane, which is on a long cooldown. So you're just not going to be really leveraging the ability to harass people with her early. And the plus healing and shielding later is nice, but Guardian also does that. Guardian is about 2 to 3 times as powerful as this is. Now it's on a 45-second cooldown, so it's longer, but actually it's even more than that. It's 2 to 3 times per person, so it's really 4 to 6 times as powerful because it affects you as well. So it's really like, you know, at least 4 Aries a lot of times whenever you proc Guardian. So it's just too cute. Like, some people get it, but I just think that you just can't leverage it early, and it just doesn't scale as well later as something like Guardian does. Yeah, I just think it's too gimmicky. And you don't need stuff from this tree. Ultimate Hat is cute, but you don't need it. Mana Flow Ban, you don't have mana problems. Nullifying Orb is okay, but it's not that great. Celerity is good. It gives you extra movement speed. Scorch, once again, you're not going to use it that well in lane because your only ability, your Q... I mean, I guess Scorch does have a 20-second cooldown, so it doesn't matter if you can spam your ability or not. But Rakan's just not an early poke pressure champion. So I just think that Sorcery's kind of out. Some people try it. I don't think it's that great. Domination, similarly, is out. Predator's cute, probably on Rakan. I mean, you do get lower cooldown on the boots, because with your item active, you know, it's going to go down to, in the middle of the game, probably 120-second cooldown. And then that'll take it down to 36 seconds, I believe. No, 48 seconds per Predator. Now, if you take damage while you're moving towards them, 45% most movement speed for 15 seconds. You deal a little bit of damage, but you're not going to be getting that much damage, especially on the AD side. It's not worth it. Like, it looks cute. It's not worth it. You don't have trouble engaging as Rakan anyways. Dark Harvest, obviously no. Electrocute, you're just not designed to do that much damage. That scales mostly off of bonus AD, so you don't want it. Sudden Impact's cute. You don't want it. So this stuff is, like, Ingenious Hunter and Zombie Ward are awesome, but you get that as your secondary. Inspiration is nothing here I would really like. I mean, no. Just no. Not as a primary tree. So that brings us over to Precision, no. And then it brings us over to Resolve. So the easiest choice is Font of Life. You definitely want this. It's going to help people trigger your Ardent Censer, which we'll talk about in a little bit. If you decide to go for Ardent Censer, anyone that gets healed off of your font is going to get the Ardent Censer proc, so it's very easy to put it on your whole team after you engage and just tag everybody or tag a bunch of people with your with your ult. That's going to trigger Font of Life. Then anyone that attacks the people that have been tagged with your ult, anyone that's been tagged with your ult, then they're all going to get Ardent Censer, so it basically puts Ardent on your whole team. So that's really good. Conditioning is just great bonus. I thought it was 10. Wait, when did that get hotfixed? It's always been 8-8. I thought I could have sworn it was 10-10. Either way, on your total armor and magic resist. Either way, it's still really good. It's a good value. I talked about this in my Rune analysis video, but it's a really good value. It's like 400 gold or something. So if you average 10 bonus armor and 10 bonus magic resist based on your total armor and magic resist, that's going to be 380 gold value that scales over time into the game. You're going to get 180 from AP, 18 or magic resist, 18 per point of magic resist, 18 gold value, and then 20 gold value per armor point. I know all these values by heart because I do so many of these videos, a lot of them. So it's about 380 gold or 380 gold value that probably scales up to maybe 500 as the game progresses, depending on how much armor and magic resist you get. That's really good. You have Revitalize, which is nice. It's +5 bonus healing and shielding, and then you get 10% extra outgoing, shielding, and healing, or incoming, and that's different from plus healing and shielding because it stacks multiplicatively with those, and it says it if you click on it, which I will here in just a second. Or you have Second Wind, which gives you some really nice healing. So I did some math for you here on these abilities. Down here, we'll talk about the alternate, like what you'll usually see in maybe Challenger or Diamond, and why I don't agree with that most of the time in just a second. Let's talk about the base stuff though first. And I just mentioned Revitalize and Second Wind. So Second Wind, basically the math breaks down to if you're missing 200 HP, so you're missing maybe somewhere between a quarter to a third of your health in lane, which is pretty standard against a lot of poke lanes. That gives you about 1.4 health per second on average. And you're going to get 60 times 1.4, which is 84 health per minion. And then, so that's about 224 gold per minute of value in the lane. So you have 84 extra HP per minute, which is 2.66 gold value. So that's really nice, obviously. So if you just have this going in lane for 2 minutes, you get a 424 gold value. So that's really good. Or, I mean, a better way to think about it also is if you just think about it as 1.4, you could figure it out in terms of rejuve beads. It's going to be somewhere between like 200 to 300 gold minimum value in lane. So that's really good, depending on how you want to value it. Whether you want to count it as flat HP that's gained, or whether you want to just use it as the equivalent to like health per second in terms of rejuve beads. And rejuve beads are 50% of your base health. What is his base health regen? We can figure this out. So it's 150 gold for a rejuve bead. His base health regen is pretty low, though. It's 5. So 50% has 2.5 health per 5. Okay, so that's 0.5 health per second. And a rejuve bead is 150 gold. So that's basically times 3. So it's something like that. It's particularly good on Rakan because he has such, in terms of valuation, because he has such low base health regen anyways compared to a lot of other tanks. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good value early on. It's like a 400 gold value, depending on the champion. So if you go Second Wind, you use your Q, you hit them every now and then with Qs, and you buy 2 rejuve beads, 1 for coin, and then 1 for either banner, if you want to build it into banner, or 1 for redemption, if you want to build it into redemption. Then that makes harassed champions largely irrelevant. Like, they're still annoying, but you can definitely heal through them. It's not as good as someone who's going to get Second Wind plus rejuve beads plus Targon's Brace, but it's still pretty good. So it really helps out a ton versus like Nami, Sona, Karma, Lulu, and then Zyra if she hits you with plants and doesn't all in you. So it's really, really nice against poke lanes. So if you're against a poke lane, you definitely want to take this. Revitalize is a great option if you're against tanks, or if you're just not really that scared of their poke. And it stacks multiplicatively. I didn't even realize this until I read this doing research for this video, but it's not the same as plus healing and shielding. So by itself, with the 5 plus 15, it's not, or plus 10, it's not 15% bonus healing and shielding, it's 15.5%. So how that works out is it checks all of your plus healing and shielding, and then you get an additional percentage based on that. You get an additional 10% that stacks multiplicatively based on that. So what that means is, let's say that you have Mikael's Crucible plus Redemption, and you're taking that. So Mikael's gives you 20%, plus healing and shielding. Redemption gives you 10%. Sadie must need some food. She's feeling very friendly. And then you get 5% off of this. That's a total of 35% heal and shield power. Okay? Then what this is going to check, it's not just going to give you 10%. Okay? Because it's going to check what do you already have, and it's going to stack with that multiplicatively. So it's going to give you, okay, you already have 35%, we're going to give you an extra 3.5%, because that's 10% of 35. So you're going to get your 10%, then you're going to get an extra 3.5% from the multiplicative stacking. So instead of 45%, you're going to get 48.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but getting an extra 3.5% of that is really nice. The way that math works out, it's like an extra like 120 or 130 gold values. That's pretty good. Now, this extra 10% does not scale with your base health regeneration. It does not scale with Lifesteal or Spell Vamp. Actually, no, that's plus healing and shielding does not scale with those things, but this Revitalize does. This plus 10% does increase your health regen. It does increase any sort of self-heals that you have. It's just normal plus healing and shielding does not affect health regen. But this Revitalize 10% does. So a lot of this is not going to matter that much, but just like mathematically, it's just marginally better than most people think it is. It's still really, really good. So yeah, very powerful on Rakan, particularly if you go for the plus healing and shielding build. So if you go for things like, you know, the Redemption, Ardent Censer build, Mikael's, if you get Locket, it also applies to that. It applies to Font of Life, the healing off of Font of Life. So both of these are very, very good. Just the reason you would choose one over the other is if you need to survive the lane, if it's a bit tougher, Second Wind is awesome. Otherwise, if you think the laning phase is okay, if you have lane dominance or they just aren't running a poke champion that's really that intimidating, then I think Revitalize is the best default. So default to Revitalize, and then if you have to, go for Second Wind. Font of Life is the best choice in the tree. You can get Demolition, which is like, it's okay if you really want to push. But Rakan is such low range, it's dangerous to walk up in auto towers and to stand there for that long. And I see some people get the Unflinching. I really don't like this that much. Now you do get 15% slow resist, which is good. And you get 10% tenacity. And whenever you cast summoner spells, you get 10% tenacity, and you can get up to 15% tenacity. Extra tenacity. So it's like, it's okay. It gives you tenacity, which reduces crowd control duration. You're still probably going to get blown up if you get crowd controlled most of the time. I don't foresee this saving you, because when you get crowd controlled, you're going to be right on top of the enemy team. So if you try to go in with your W and you get hit with a bind or some other crowd control, you're so far out of position already that I just don't think this is going to save you. And the 15% slow resist is not going to matter, because slows are annoying on you, but you can get around them better than most champions because of your W and your ability to EE or just ult and proc a ton of movement speed. So slow is not as brutal on you as it is on other immobile champions. So it's okay, but I think it's just a little too cute. I think there are probably better options. Font of Life, however, is really, really good on Rakan, like I said, because it's such a great way to proc Ardent Censer. Because how this works, if you haven't watched my channel in the past, basically if you crowd control somebody, it's going to put a rune over their head for 4 seconds. Whenever anyone auto-attacks that person, then they get a heal. That heal counts as a heal from you, and so it triggers Ardent Censer, because Ardent Censer says whenever you heal somebody, then they get that 6-second buff of the on-hit, the attack speed, and the healing and all that stuff. So that means that if you go in, let's say that you R plus W the Varus, who's just out of position in front. You have, you know, a Vayne on your team, a Syndra on your team, and I don't know, a Master Yi on your team. They all go in there and get one auto attack off on this person while they're doing their spells. They all get the buff for Ardent Censer. Okay, so whenever you go in with your R and you tag like 3 people, anyone that attacks any of those 3 people is going to get the Ardent Censer buff, and it keeps getting refreshed. So if they attack them at the first part, they get 6 seconds. They attack them again, you know, near the end of the 4th second, they get an additional 6 seconds. So they get somewhere between 6 to 10 seconds of crowd control, or of the Ardent Censer buff, if they continuously attack these marked targets. And you can keep marking them. I mean, if you hit them with, you know, your ult plus W marked, and then if you have your W maxed out, it goes down to 10 second cooldown, or maybe 12 second cooldown, I can't remember. Yeah, it goes down to a 12 second cooldown, and then they hit the person at the 3 seconds out of the 4 seconds. It's going to refresh, make the total 9 seconds, and you're already going to be able to W and hit him again after 7 seconds with 40% CDR. So you can pretty much have a permanent Ardent Censer buff on anyone that attacks people that you're crowd controlling. Permanent. So that's really, really good, obviously. And the fact that you can apply it to multiple people with your R or with your W makes it really, really strong. And I mean, the healing's pretty decent. Now, I can't confirm this because I've heard different accounts, but someone told me that the tooltip is not accurate in League and that it's actually 1% max HP per attack, not over 2 seconds. So in the game, because on here, on the Wikia, unless they changed it, on the Wikia, it doesn't say over 2 seconds. Okay, it just says 1% of your maximum health. So it looks like on hit. In the game, it says over 2 seconds. So I've heard people say that this is the accurate thing in the Wikia. I've seen like someone reference a Reddit that said this. So if this is true, this is actually quite good. So if you have 1,000 HP, I think I did the math here. If you have 1,000 HP, then it'll heal you for 15. It'll heal your ally for 15 HP on hit, which is massive. That means if they have 180 early, which is typically what a lot of AD carries will have somewhere in that range. Once they get like a BF sword, their base AD, and then any kind of runes they have, they'll have a little bit more than that. But just for easy math, let's say they have about 100 AD. That's equivalent to 15% lifesteal on those targets, which is a lot. That is a lot of lifesteal value. Now, if they have 50 armor, it's equal to 19% lifesteal. This triggers on hit, whereas normally, normal lifesteal is mitigated by armor. So it's your total damage dealt, not pre-mitigation damage. So basically what that means is it's even better than 15%. It's equal to about 19% against a target that has 50 armor early on, which is kind of like a moderate, armor target. So that's really, really good. That's really good. That's a lot of lifesteal early on, especially in fights. Now, you can't trigger it a ton. You have to hit them with a W. But, if you're doing trades in lane and your AD carry gets off 3 attacks on somebody, that's 45 extra HP. That adds up. That's a lot. That's good. Now, this is awesome with Ardent Censer. I just described that. Unflinching is okay. Now, keep in mind that... Let me see. I'm not sure how this works, but if someone has Ardent Censer, like let's say it's a Twitch, and let's say that you mark 3 different people with Font of Life. You go in, you hit 3 people with your ult. Twitch opens up with his ult, which hits all 3 people. I'm not sure if he would gain triple the lifesteal of that or not. Or if someone has Hurricane. So let's say that you have a Varus who has Hurricane. He's going Ginsu's Hurricane build. And you crowd control 3 people. And he walks up in each one of those Hurricane bolts. I know they all apply... trying to think. Ardent Censer if you've healed somebody. So you would get the Ardent Censer healing on hit. But I don't know if you would get the on hit for each one of these people. So in that last scenario that I said, if you still had 1,000 HP by the time they completed Hurricane for some reason, would that be 45 per auto? And then off of Hurricane, however much that gives, an additional like 40s for 85 on hit or something? I don't know. So I don't know if this is per attack or per champion who's hit. It says champions who attack people. Now it doesn't say that it's on hit though. It says champions who attack. So Reddit will have to investigate that, but it's really good as is, and particularly really overpowered against something like a Twitch or someone who gets Hurricane. So I don't know. It says per attack and not on hit though. If it's per attack, then it's like Ginsu's and the first portion of Ginsu's, and doesn't work out on hit with Hurricane. But I don't know. That'd be something interesting people could investigate if you want to. But either way, very good. Best thing in the tree. So it doesn't, I mean, logistically, it doesn't matter. You pick this because it's really good with Ardent Censer. It's just either like ridiculously good or just, solid. But either way, you pick it. So it doesn't affect your choice. You take this. So the more interesting choice here, and I'll try to pick it up a bit. I really don't want this guy to be super long, but I know it's going to be because there's just so many aspects of Rakan. Guardian is very, very good on Rakan. and this is something that I just kind of come to respect a little bit more. I used to get Aftershock a lot on him, but Guardian scales with plus healing and shielding and this extra 1.5 seconds of movement speed for both you and your ally really helps you get out of a lot of sticky situations, and it helps your ally get out of a lot of sticky situations too. I mean, that's a nice little burst of speed to help you out. And it scales off of your bonus health, which, you know, if you just go for some of the builds that I'm talking about early on, just even something really simple like... okay, I was just checking my formatting here. Even something really simple like... the Resolve bonus, which is 130, plus Ruby Sightstone, which is 500, gives you 630. That's plus 63 shield very early in the game. That's just like really early in the game you get Ruby Sightstone. Okay, plus 63 shield. At level 9, you get two 163 shields, because it's going to have a base of 100 at level 9. And that's 326 shields. That's really good. A 326 shield that also gives plus 20% movement speed for 1 second. And could be even more if you take the Revitalize. That scales with Guardian. So you could get up to, you know, an additional 15.5% off of that. So that could be an additional, like, I don't know, 40 or so shield. So you're looking at 366 shields. That's really good. Now, it does have a 40-second cooldown, which is what used to turn me off of this item. But keep in mind that Rakan is not going to be doing a ton of all-ins, typically. In some lanes, maybe. But a lot of times, he's not going to be doing a lot of the all-ins. And the most important thing, which is almost always true, is Rakan is not going to stay close enough to get the damage off of Aftershock most of the time. There are times in bot lane where you will stand close enough when you have a really good engage and you know you're going to be able to win the fight. You might stand close enough early on to get the Aftershock proc for the damage. But a lot of times, especially later in the game, as I described earlier, you do not want to stand close. You want to get in there, engage, get out with your E, and that's sort of his pattern of trading. So it's often a really bad idea to stick around in the fight. So yeah, you're not going to proc the damage, and that's a lot of the power of this is for champions in lane that want to trade very often on cooldown, and they want to go all in and get this damage. So things like Alistar, things like Leona, are really, really going to like Aftershock, Blitzcrank, stuff like that. So all-in champions that want to fight to the death in melee would like this, but since Rakan wants to get out, he's going to lose off on the damage part. So he's really just getting it for this bonus magic resistant armor. And I haven't done the math, but I would say that the shield is probably similar effective health to that, especially because you can put it on your ally. Whereas this has no effect, no defensive effect for your ally. It's only for you. It's only personal tank stats. So the fact that you can help your ally out, which helps a ton against things like Zed or Syndra ult or Malzahar, just anything that's trying to kill somebody that does a lot of damage, spike damage, then Aftershock, or not Aftershock, Guardian helps out with that. So I would go Guardian most of the time. If you're in a lane that, like, is going to have a lot of frequent trades, you're going for that kill, you're going for that all-in, then maybe you can still go Aftershock. So if you're like with Misfortune, Jhin, Draven, Callista, something that has a lot of kill pressure early, you could still consider going Aftershock if you want to. Okay, so that kind of handles the runes there. The primary runes. The secondary runes, I think you have to take Ingenious Hunter plus Zombie Ward. I've talked about this with all of my guides so far. I've talked about it with Soraka. I talked about it with Leona. I'm going to talk about it again with Rakan. It's insane. It's really, really good, this combination. So if we look at... And Rakan is the best user, I would argue, of Ingenious Hunter because his build is so versatile. And it helps him with any of the builds that he tries to go. So this is probably the most underrated, most overpowered rune. Certainly for solo queue. I would argue that a lot of pros are sleeping on this, but certainly in solo queue, I think that it is. It's 10% base item active cooldown reduction, and then 6% per bounty hunter stack, which is a kill or an assist. So you don't have to get the kill to get the stacks. So that's up to 40% when you get 5 stacks. Now the big kicker is this applies to trinkets. Okay, So that means that your sweeper, at a bare minimum, your sweeper also gets the 40%. And then if you get Ruby Sightstone, which is the best thing to get on Rakan, and I would argue on a lot of supports right now, it's an extremely powerful item. We'll talk about why here in just a second. You get to 60% cooldown. So that means that your sweeper goes from a 76 base cooldown to 30 seconds. And keep in mind that your Oracle Lens, your upgraded, your level 9 sweeper, sweeps for 10 seconds, and it goes on cooldown when you start the sweep. So that means that you turn it on, it sweeps for 10, the cooldown's already been ticking, so it's only going to be on cooldown for 20 seconds. That means you have this up 1/3 of the time. 33% of the time, you are able to detect wards and invisible things. That's crazy. So you get to run around and clear all of the wards on the map. I mean, it's not unusual in kind of longer games to get somewhere around 80 to 100 wards in a game just by doing normal, like, good warding practices, but also because when you kill all of these wards with zombie ward, you get a free ward. A free ward that lasts for 3 minutes. That's even longer than normal wards. It gives really high level of vision. So yeah, zombie ward is crazy because whenever you kill their wards, you get a ward. It gives you extreme snowball advantage. If you're ahead, you just get to ward up their entire jungle, and it doesn't count towards your ward limit. So if you just go through and sweep, and you get a ward here, you get a ward here, and you get a ward here where the support warded, boom, that's 3 free wards. Now you can use your ward here, you can ward over here, and then even ward like down here, and then you get this entire area covered as one person. You can have, like, you know, 6 or more wards active at the same time. That's like old school season 2 warding for free, basically. That's just insane amount of, like, map information. So that's very, very good, especially when you get that many ward kills off of your sweep. So that right there is already really powerful. Now you combine that with all of the active items that have extremely powerful effects, and this quickly becomes into the overpowered category. And I don't throw that word around. I don't use OP, you know, in all of my videos like some other YouTubers, basically 90% of YouTubers out there. But this is seriously bordering on overpowered. And it just does not get a lot of press. People do not talk about this. A lot of pro players do not get this. It's very, very good. So Banner of Command and Redemption both go from 2 minutes to 48 seconds on the cooldown. Locket goes to 36 seconds, from 90 seconds to 36. And Talisman of Ascension goes to 24 seconds. 24 seconds. You can just spam that all the time and just run around the map most of the time. It's so crazy. So, in my mind, this is a must-get package on almost all supports except for AP supports. It's probably okay on AP supports, but because they don't get any item actives most of the time, unless they want to go Hourglass or something on Fiddle, it's debatable on AP supports. But on everybody else, tanks and enchanters, I think this is mandatory, especially for solo queue. Now, in higher elo, when everybody's going to be warding, hopefully they're all using their trinkets, they're all buying control wards, you know, it might be too much redundant vision with zombie, and you might say, well, it's redundant. I know I have a reliable AD carry. I know I'm going to go Ardent Censer, so I'm not going to have an active early. You know, I would really like to go for something like Eye of the Oasis or Eye of the Equinox, so I get 4 wards faster than I would get with Ruby. And I have slot efficiency so that I can carry around, you know, more consumables or whatever. So in high level play where there's already a lot of warding and where you're probably going to still rush something like Ardent Censer, it's possible you could skip this and go for something like Biscuits, which could help get you through a really tough lane, and Magical Footwear. These are the only things I could see getting. I mean, I guess you could go Cosmic for the 5% cooldown reduction if you want instead of Biscuits, but this is really the only other option for Rakan, I think, is to go down the, I was going to call it the Guardian tree, but the Resolve tree, and then go for Magical Footwear, which is like a 300 to 400 gold value. Actually, like 400 to 500 gold value. And then Biscuits to sustain through tough lanes. That's for like the super sustain through really tough lanes. So I could see that in Diamond Plus. Once again, the criteria, though, is everyone has to be warding very, very well for you to not want Zombie Ward plus Ingenious Hunter. And even, I would say, in a lot of Diamond games, people are still not warding enough. So extremely rare. Extremely. If you're a master or challenger and you're watching this video, maybe you go for this. But I wouldn't turn down Ingenious plus Zombie for almost anything. Okay, so the item build that I recommend is Nomad's Medallion. I explained the Spell Thieves debate. A lot of people still get Spell Thieves and they'll rush Eye of the Watchers. I don't agree with that, especially at Platinum and lower. Ionian Boots, Ruby Sightstone, Banner of Command, Redemption Locket would be my standard build. But there's a lot of variation. We'll explain. He's one of the most versatile champions in the game. But let's go ahead and get in here. We'll start with kind of the easiest one here, Ionian Boots. Now, mobility boots are really good. They're obviously going to allow you to roam around. Rakan is a great roamer. He's great at warding. He's great at sweeping. Just mentioned all of that. So mobility boots will let you roam. It will let you get deeper wards. It will let you really leverage the sweeper because obviously the further you can move while you're sweeping, the more likely it is you're going to find more wards. You're going to have more time to clear them, all that kind of stuff. So yes, mobility boots are great. However, the loss of CDR runes, so you can't get the 7.5% CDR runes. We're not going to go into Transcendence, so we just talked about I don't want to go into Sorcery. So that means you're either going for that as your primary and you're losing out on Guardian and all the good stuff in the Resolve tree, or you're going at secondary and you're losing out on Ingenious Hunter and Zombie Ward, neither of which is a good option. So you're not going to have any innate CDR like you used to. And if you just start doing the math on items, you know, you really need to get that CDR quickly. It's so good on Rakan, and you want to get it by your 4th item. You know, everything needs to have CDR on it. So if you can go Ionian Boots, you can go something like, you know, Ionian, Nomad, Banner, Redemption, and get it. Now, Sightstone, which is very, very good, Ruby Sightstone, we'll talk about that in a second, as I keep saying, but that doesn't have CDR on it. So it's important to note that. If you get this item, it's not going to have CDR. So it means you're going to have Nomad, Ionian, Ruby, Banner, and Redemption before you hit the 40% CDR, which is really late into the game. So a lot of games, you're not even going to get to 40%. So having that 10% is very, very good. That's more ultimates. Your ultimate is extremely powerful. You're a great playmaking support. You want to have as many ultimates as possible and just use it on cooldown to get kills, make plays. And then both his shield and his W are very, very powerful, long cooldown abilities. So CDR is better on Rakan than almost any other champion in the game. It is extremely powerful because everything in his kit has a pretty long cooldown and is very high impact. Except Q is not super high impact, but the other 3 things are. So that's very good. Also, he's really good with summoners. I mean, a lot of champions are good with summoners, but he has such a high potential with his flash. Because you can flash ult and you don't even, like, it's going to be even less reaction time than the W. So you can flash ult someone who's right in front and then W to get to someone else. So his flash has amazing power in team fights because it's just like point click crowd control. Or you can just ult W onto somebody else rolls up, you know, tries to get your AD carry. Like I said before, you just flash onto him, charm him. So the interaction between flash and his charm is very, very strong. So Flash is really good on him. And then Ignite and Exhaust are both really good. So Ignite, obviously, the more Ignites you have, the more kill press you have. Rakan is, or can be played like a pick champion. So having Ignite for a pick champion is very good to make sure you secure those kills for your team. And he also uses Exhaust very well because he has easy access to the back line. So one problem with running something like Exhaust on a Janna, and I still do run Exhaust on Janna most of the time, it's great against the melee champions, right? It's really good against Fiora, Riven, Rengar, Kha'Zix, all these champions that want to run in and try to dive your back line. But what about that Twitch that's on their back line, or that Kog'Maw, or just something else that's doing massive damage from a distance? You can't really get to them as Janna with Exhaust, and that's frustrating. You just have to sit there and watch that Twitch blow your team up unless he opens up in melee, which some Twitches do. But a lot of times they'll stand too far back. With Rakan, however, you can get to that back line. So if you, you know, ult RW, get to that Twitch after he's done with his crowd control, then you exhaust him, and you can tie him up for a really long time on the back line. And, you know, there aren't a lot of other enchanters that can do that. And so being able to have more of those, more exhaust, more flash, more ignites is very, very good on Rakan. So I think Ionian boots are better on Rakan than almost anybody else in the game. They're very, very good because of his kit. Okay. So yeah, I think that's core. So you can go mobility boots. He's really good with mobility boots also, but his unique, like, just thirst for CDR and for summoner cooldowns, his like ability to really make high impact plays based on those summoners just really, really makes me want to go Ionian, even though it is slightly slower. It also gives you better in-combat movement speed, which is very relevant. So after you engage, you know, as Rakan, don't forget you got to get out, right? You have to leave after you engage. Unlike Alistar, who can, you know, take mobility boots, start a fight, and just stand there in the fight. For the most part, Rakan has to leave. He has to get out. And so having that extra in-combat move speed with the Ionian boots over mobility boots is very helpful, in addition to all these other reasons. So I think that's why Ionian are the best on him. Okay, let's talk about Banner here. So Banner, I have an entire video about Banner, so I'm not going to go super in-depth. Just go ahead and watch this video if you're a non-believer of Banner. And I wasn't for a long time, so I'm right there with you. I thought this item was trash for a long time. But the key difference this season about Banner is Ingenious Hunter. That extra 40% cooldown on Banner completely changes the game with this thing. Because now you're going from, and the fact that Ruby Sightstone is very, very good right now too, because of its health scaling with Guardian, with Locket now, with Locket having better HP scaling. A lot of things have changed to make Ruby Sightstone very good, and it has really good synergy with Ingenious Hunter and Banner of Command. So now the fact that you can go from a 2-minute cooldown on this to 45 seconds is a very big deal. That means that every wave and a half you get pressure with Banner. So it's just constant pressure, just constantly dropping this in lanes everywhere you go is very, very difficult for a lot of enemies to deal with. Now, yes, you're not going to see us in pro play. You're not going to see us in challenger play. I talk about that a lot in the video because a lot of people think, oh, it's trash. I never see Afromu getting this, or I never see Biofrost getting this. It's garbage. But the reason is challenger players and pro players have much better awareness and much better macro. They're going to see Banner in the lane. They're going to be aware of it, and they're going to plan ahead to have somebody deal with it who has teleport. So they're going to say, oh, there's a Banner going up the lane. Fiora, can you go deal with that in about 30 seconds? Is your TP up? Fiora is like, yeah, sure. They're going to have better communication. And so Fiora is going to go down there with teleport and deal with it. But if you watch my stream, you'll see that this is not the case in Platinum and lower. Most people don't even know what Banner does. Like, they know it promotes a minion, but they don't know what that minion does. They don't understand if there's a Banner minion in a lane, it's going to go pressure the tower, and you're going to have to stop it, or it's potentially going to take that tower. Especially if it's on a cannon minion. So a lot of times they won't even notice. They'll just go ahead and start a fight. So if you put a Banner, let's say you just start, you're just walking out, you just backed, bought some items, you see a cannon minion right here. The wave is basically frozen, like maybe right here or something. Their tier 1 is down. They just have a tier 2. Put Banner on it. You know that in about 2 minutes, it's going to be on that tower, right? So it's going to push through, and you're going to have a really big wave on that tower. They're not going to notice that a lot of times, okay? So that means you can say, hey, let's go bait Baron. You can tell your team, let's go bait Baron. I've got a Banner going bot. Come over here. Your team follows. You ward this up. You know, you guys just do your standard solo queue, face off right, the little clown fiesta, where people just kind of sit here, look at each other, throw a couple of skill shots. Eventually, one side gets caught over the other. But usually, by the time that happens, the wave's already going to be up here. And so while you're sitting over here fighting, there's going to be a stack and a half, at least, a minion wave and a half, or maybe even 2 waves worth of viewer minions that are going to crash into this tower. And they're probably going to take the tower. So they're going to be over here fighting, then it'll be like, whoa, oh my god, there's like, you know, 15 minions down here taking this tower. And then you win the fight, maybe. If you do win, I mean, who knows, maybe you have someone who actually has teleport on your team. So maybe, like, there was one game a couple of days ago where we had a Gnosis on our team. Had a Banner pushing bot. We won a fight. He immediately teleported bottom, like right as it was killing this tower. Killed it. He had 15 minions, ran over, killed this, took inhibitor. Off of, we killed 3 people here, and Gnosis was pretty fed, and 2 people couldn't handle him. So if I didn't have Banner, then the wave would have still been back here. And Gnosis would not have been able to get this tower. But because I had Banner, and it pushed all the way from here to here, I was going to get the tower with Banner anyways, but Nasus was able to teleport down and get an additional tower and an inhibitor because of Banner. So that's one scenario that works with this. Another one is that maybe they do send someone down there who doesn't have teleport. Like a lot of times, let's say that you're trying to pressure over here, you're telling your team to bait Baron, but they're not listening, so you're just kind of A-ramming middle. They have pretty good wave clear. They have a Ziggs or an Anivia or something here, so you can't really do this tower, but your team is still just kind of wandering around here. And it's normally a 5v5. But then you see their Vayne goes down here because she sees 15 minions. She's like, oh my gosh, she sees all this gold in her mind. She's like, I'm going to go clear this. Then you see she's down there. You know they only have 4 people, and then boom, you engage. Because you're Rakan, you can do that too. You can really leverage when people are out of position. You can punish them very hard because you have really, really good engage, which separates Rakan from a lot of the other popular champions right now in support. You know, Taric can't force fights that well. Janna can't force fights that well. Rakan can. So you see that Vayne down there, you ping your team like 3 or 4 times. You say, Vayne's down here, you question mark her 2 times. Ping, go in, boom, start a fight, 4v5, win. So that happens so much. Or you're over here baiting around Baron, let's say. And then Vayne decides she wants to go bottom. Or maybe the jungler goes bottom. Maybe that Rengar is like, man, I need all this gold. He goes bottom. Rengar shows, you come over here, you try to fight Baron, they try to fight you, 4v5, boom, kill him, take Baron, win game. That happens so much with Banner. Because so often, either people won't pay attention to it, it'll get free tower damage, or sometimes free towers. It allows your teleporter to, if you ever win a fight, if your top laner's there and they have teleport, they can go pressure immediately. Or mid laner who has teleport can go pressure immediately. Or someone just won't even be thinking about the implications for going bottom without having teleport. And so you'll get the AD carry or the jungler or something down here, and that'll allow you to force a 4v5 or force a Baron. So it's a ton of map pressure. And it has pretty good base stats, like I talk about in the video. People think its stats are trash. Its stats are not trash. They're actually pretty good. I mean, its base stats, especially if you're near towers, it's 144% efficient. Right? 108% if you don't include the movement speed around towers. It's 108% efficient. Compare that to something like a Locket. Garbage. 76% efficient. Yes, the shield is powerful, but the stats themselves are awful on this item. You are paying a lot to get a nice shield for a team fight. But you know what's also nice, that's potentially even better than a nice shield in a good 5v5 team fight, is forcing a 5v4 team fight. It's better to remove one of them from the fight by forcing them to go bottom, to be out of position, than to just get a shield. So removing an entire person from their team in a fight is even, I would say, just as powerful or more powerful than having this shield. So keep that in mind as well. So yes, its stats are way better than Locket's, and they're on par with Zeke's, and they're on par, if you look at Zeke's, which I'll talk about here in a second, actually has pretty good base stats too, about 100%. And then we'll talk about Knight's Vow here in a second, but it has similar stats to Knight's Vow. So its base stats are either better than, or at least on par, depending on how you value the movement speed, with other items. So its stats are good, and its effect is really good, and it has a very good early game because it has Reju Bead, which helps you out in lane. It has really nice components. We got Reju Bead, we've got Cloth Armor, 2 Cloth Armors. That feels good to buy these items early. They're a nice item power spike. So if you just come back, you have 300 gold, you're like, sweet, I can get that Cloth Armor. Okay, rather than, crap, I have to get this Sapphire Crystal. Or crap, I have to get this Null Magic Mantle early, because Locket's made out of 2 Null Magic Mantles, which are typically garbage, unless you're against an AP support bottom. So it just feels really bad to have to buy that many Null Magic Mantles early. Get Locket the Iron Solari. Or if you're getting Ardent Censer, it can feel really bad to have to get the Aether Wisp. Like, it's okay early, but it's like, you know, it feels like there could be better options. And Raptor Cloak is very good once you complete it, because you get that 20% movement speed when you're running to lane. You know, every time you back to go get wards, now you're getting back to lane that much faster. You're able to rotate that much faster. You're able to navigate when they try to dive you around tower that much faster. So that's really good. It says Raptor Cloak, they lowered the price of it a while ago too. It's crazy value if you include that. It's almost a 200% value when you complete it, if you include the movement speed. So that's insane. So it's 108% just base value. And then if you include the 20%, it's 200%. on a 900 gold item. So that thing is really, really good, and a lot of people sleep on it, and they think this item is trash, because historically, it has been trash. To be fair, this item, for much of its history, for the last 7 years, has been trash. But it's very different in the preseason. They've buffed it a lot. Just watch the video if you want more. I've already probably spent 10 or 15 minutes talking about it. Just watch this video. I'll walk through more examples with different champions. I'll do some more math for you. I'll compare it to other items. Very, very good right now. And Rakan is one of the best champions for this because he's so mobile, right? Because he can get down here, you know, and place, so he can come down here, you know, place a banner on this wave and get back really quickly, because he can take Talisman of Ascension and zip around the map really quickly, or he can just take his W and just W back and get back to wherever he needs to go very quickly. So he's a very good user of banner because he's so mobile, and he doesn't have to have hardcore tank items, and he doesn't have to have hardcore shield and heal items. He can afford to get hybrid items because he can evade. He has a lot of utility with his crowd control, so he's not just a shield or healer like Sona or something like that. I mean, Sona does have crowd control with her ult, but she really needs that plus healing and shielding. Rakan likes it. He's really good with it, but he can afford to get a utility item like this. And he also kind of likes tankiness, because you're going to get hit a couple of times in lane. You don't want to go mega tank on Rakan, but having a little bit of tank items are nice, so that you can take a couple of tower shots if you need to. You can help tank Baron or Dragon if you need to. And you can get hit by the occasional, you know, Twitch crit or Varus crit without getting one-shotted. So it is a nice blend of decent tank stats, great utility, great power spike curve in terms of your itemization, and it gives you gold. Don't forget, each time these minions kill things, they give you golds. This is a gold generation item. So you basically get 2 gold regen items. When you go Nomad's Battalion plus Banner early on, that's double gold gen. You are going to be rich as flip. Just to censor it. You're going to be really, really rich if you buy this item early on. So it's really, really good. Yeah, let me change that around. That was before I redid the math on it, on this thing. So it's very, very good. That was when I did the Leona guide. I copy pasted that little section on there, and I thought it was bad, but it's actually really, really good when I did more math on it and tried it out in lane. So very, very strong item. Okay. Now, Ruby Sightstone, which I just talked about before, is the best forward item right now on the market. It combos so well with Ingenious Hunter, and the stats are just crazy, and they have always been good on this item. It's just a lot of people sleep on this item because they want to go for, you know, Eye of the Equinox or Eye of the Watchers primarily. But this is a super good item, especially if you think about the gold efficiency. So normal Sightstone is only 150 health, and this gives you 500, so that's 350 health that you're buying. So you're getting a free 931 value for 800. So already you're getting 116% gold efficiency. Just stop right there. Just if you just want to buy health, just a big stack of health, you're already getting a really good bargain on just buying it. And you get a 4th ward, which is, look at how valuable wards are. Okay, if you look at Sightstone, this item, the stats are trash. It's only 50% gold efficiency, but everyone gets it, and it's really powerful because wards are extremely powerful. Warding wins games. So getting that 4th ward on an item that's already 100 and whatever percent, 116% efficient, that's a good deal. So if it stopped right there, it would be like decent. But the fact that it gets 20% extra ability cooldown, I mean, CDR is 266 for 10% CDR. 532 plus whatever that was. What was it, 931? Something like that. So if you value it the same as, if you value it the same as ability CDR, then it's 182% efficient. And if you include the ward, it's well over 200% efficient. I don't know how you want to calculate the extra ward. I mean, if you do 75 gold every 2.5 minutes, you can figure out that math. in addition to this, but it's really, really, really gold efficient. It's very, very good. And I would argue that this active item CDR, especially with a lot of these Rakan builds, is potentially even better than normal CDR because these actives are so powerful. Like Locket, Banner, Redemption, Talisman, all of these are so powerful. I would argue that they're at least as powerful as a lot of abilities out there. So it's probably, this is probably worth even more than, you know, what I just said, 566. And if you think this is valuable, then imagine the gold value on Ingenious Hunter, right? The 40%, right? So 266 for 10% times 4, that would make Ingenious Hunter over a 1,000 gold value rune once you stack it up. I mean, that's so much. That's so good. And when you pair these together, it's just crazy. Trust me, when you do this build, and it's a lot of fun because you get to just use so many item actives all the time. So it's fun. It's extremely powerful. It's very versatile. It opens up a lot of new build paths, a lot of new play styles, such as Banner actually being viable and really good right now, specifically because of the Rune, Ruby plus Ingenious activation reduction. So very, very good. Very good, especially with the zombie sweep combo. And it's a really nice curve, right? So getting a huge chunk of HP early in the game. This is why some games I'll actually get Ruby Sightstone before I even get another item. And some people say, well, that's stupid. Why would you complete that before you complete Banner or before you complete Redemption? Because it's 500 health. Like, if you're going against like heavy burst damage early on, things that are going to be difficult to deal with, like they've got a 3-0 Zed on their team, or they've got a Fizz that just completed his Lichbane, or an Akali that just completed her Gunblade or something like that. 500 health can save your life a lot, and it scales with Guardian. So that's really good. Or if you want to go for like a Locket build, like say you don't believe in Banner, you don't like that, you just want to go for a lot of team fight, and you want to go like Redemption Locket, then Ruby Sightstone's really good there too, because not only does it reduce the cooldown on those, but it also gives you that health scaling on Locket, which you desperately need to make Locket a good value proposition now. So it scales with Guardian, scales with Locket, just keeps you alive in general. Really, really good. So yeah, definitely get Ruby. And once again, Rakan is one of the best users of Ruby because he has the best interaction with an alternative gold item, Talisman, than any other champion in the game. Frost Queen's Claim is not that good. Face of the Mountain is good in some situations, but I would argue that Talisman on Rakan is one of the best interactions in the game because speed is so good on him. Not only is it good to help him engage, but it's also good to help his team catch up to him. Because one of the big dangers of Rakan is you engage, no one follows up, and you die because you don't have anyone to jump to with an E because you're too far ahead. So if you bring your whole team with you with Talisman, then you're actually going to be able to use your E to jump out. And that's what makes it so much better than something like Righteous Glory. And you're already going to be prepped for that because you're already going to want Ruby Sightstone. You're already going to want Nomad's Medallion. So it's not that far out of your way to get Talisman. Now, I don't advocate getting Talisman like right away. Maybe if you have like a Maokai on your team or something else that really wants to get in close that can get kited, or Darius, or something like that. But it is a really nice option for later in the game. So that makes Ruby even more valuable because you're not sacrificing your Face of the Mountain to get it. Okay, so that's one of the big tensions on some other tanks is, well, do I get Face or do I get Ruby? Well, I guess you would get Face and Ruby. Do I get Equinox or do I get Ruby? I guess would be a better analogy there. But anyways, very, very good because Talisman is so good on him, that makes it even better. So it's an extremely good item. Okay, Redemption, super core item on Rakan. Really nice. Everyone's familiar with Redemption. It's still an awesome value proposition. He has healing and shielding on 3 of his abilities, on his passive, on his E, and on his Q. If you get Locket, it also boosts that. And if you have Guardian, it also boosts the shield on that. So tons and tons of scaling for Redemption. It's a 48-second cooldown with Ingenious Hunter plus Ruby Sightstone, which is amazing. It has semi-global pressure because it has 5,500 range. So because Rakan likes to roam around, then, if you have to, you can go roam middle, make a pick, make a kill, another fight breaks out bot lane between your jungler and your bot lane. You're like, oh crap, I'm not there. Throw a Redemption down there. Or mid lane's fighting. I can't rotate up there because I can't leave my bot laner right now, but I can throw a Redemption up there and maybe turn the fight. So Or just initiate a fight, immediately drop a redemption right as you initiate. Then that way, if they hit you a couple of times, you get that instant heal. You get the true damage on everyone that kind of tries to pile around you. You get a heal on any other engaged champions that you have. Or you're trying to save somebody. You know, your Darius is getting caught out of position. You can, you know, start a redemption on them, immediately shield in, crowd control them with your ult. They get hit by the redemption. Then you help them get out of there with the movement speed off of your Nomad's Medallion quest passive. So there's so many uses for this item. It's so good. It has so much synergy with everything in his kit. Even if you go for Banner of Command, it's still really good early on because that's still going to let you have some kind of semi-global presence as you go down and try to drop that banner. If your team gets into a fight, even though you tell them not to while you're doing that, then you can still throw your redemption up there later. So very, very good. Obviously, if you're going for Ardent Censer Redemption Mikael's, that build, it's really good. But I would say even if you're going to go Banner of Command, it's still good. And then Redemption plus Locket is just like, you're going to win the team fight if you have both of those a lot of the time. So that's kind of the bread and butter, because Redemption, the plus healing and shielding off of that, applies to Locket as well. And then the plus health from Redemption also applies to Locket. So really, really good synergy between those items. Everybody knows that Redemption and Locket are good, but the fact that you're getting it with Ingenious just makes it that much better. And it's still pretty good, even if you want to start with Banner of Command as a second item, I think. Yeah, you want it. Another reason that Redemption is really good is you need mana regen on Rakan, because you're not going to get very much off of coin anymore, off the nerf. Obviously, Ruby Sightstone doesn't have any mana regen on it. Neither does Banner of Command. So being able to get that huge amount of mana regeneration is good, because Rakan is not like a super mana starved champion, but at the same time, his abilities do have mana costs. And the shield does get expensive. I mean, it gets to like 100 a pop, I think, at level 5, yeah. And this isn't like super cheap either. So, you know, he's got some mana costs on his ability. They're not like over the top, but they are something to consider. And it does add up over time, especially if you don't get Zeke's. Zeke's is the only flat mana item that I recommend sometimes on Rakan. If you don't have Zeke's, especially you don't have anything that has Sapphire Crystal, you're going to need some mana regen. So I think that's a really good way to go about it. So if you get Mikael, or if you get Banner, then you can go ahead and start getting Forbidden Idol and getting into that regen, and that helps out. And it gives a lot of regen. So if you're only going to have one regen item, which a lot of times on Rakan, that might be all that you get, it's a pretty good one. It has 150 on it, so very nice. Okay, so yeah, Redemption, no-brainer. You definitely want that on Rakan. It's just a question of when do you want it. I wouldn't get it first item most of the time. I would probably either go Ardent or Banner. But there are some situations, if your team's going to be fighting a lot early, or if your AD carry is just really underperforming, just really bad, or they're just playing a champion that doesn't use Ardent that well. Maybe they're playing Jhin or Misfortune or something like that. But you want the plus, you want the team impact, and you want the plus shielding and healing. You want that power spike early, then you might want to go ahead and rush Redemption, even though it's not the greatest rush. You know, it's designed to complement other items at this point. They tried to nerf it to where it's not an always rush item. But it's still okay. If you have to do it, if you have an incompetent AD carry or someone who's underperforming that game, and you don't trust them with Ardent, or, you know, like I said before, you just want a lot of team pressure. You really want to contest these dragons. Maybe the first dragon's Infernal, and you know they're going to try to go for it because they have like a Shyvana or something like that. And you're like, I know we have to fight for that thing. And so I want Redemption like ASAP so we can actually contest it. Then that might be a reason to get it. Locket, another good item. Just talked about it. Its base stats are trash though, so under no circumstances should you rush Locket. Like, never ever rush Locket. Like, Redemption still has a lot of utility. Okay, just mentioned it. Just has tremendous scaling, even by itself. Locket, not so much. It's pretty weak early. Its stats are garbage. It's not worth the cost. It's overloaded on magic resist, which is not that great most of the time, unless you're against like a Zyra. Maybe it's okay. It does provide an instant shield, which is different from Redemption. So you can miss Redemptions. You can't really miss Locket. You just press Locket and it works. So it's a lot more reliable than Redemption. But but you really need plus healing and shielding. So I would say if you're going to go for Locket, I would definitely go Ruby Sightstone for sure before you complete it, just so you get that 500 health. And then I would highly recommend still going something like Banner first, and then Locket after that. So a situation like that would be you want a little bit of side lane pressure with Banner, you go your Ruby, and then you see, okay, you know, they have a really fed AP champion that has really high burst. I'm not going to have enough time to get a redemption off. Maybe it's a Katarina that has like 5 kills. Maybe it's a Fizz, something like that. So I'm going to go Locket for that instant shield and try to use my Locket plus Guardian to protect my team. Now, once again, this doesn't have as much synergy with the rest of Rakan's kicks. It doesn't have any plus healing and shielding on it. So it's a beneficiary of a lot of other scaling, health, plus healing and shielding, but it doesn't give anything back. It just takes all of that bonus if you happen to have those items, but if you get it, then it doesn't make any of that stuff any better than it already was. So it's kind of like a good finisher item, and that's why I get it usually late in the game. I'll get it after I go like Banner, Redemption, then a lot of times I'll get Locket, because then I'll already have the scaling off of Ruby. I'll have more levels, and I'll have the plus healing and shielding off of Redemption. So I like to get it, you know, like 4th or 5th item a lot of times. But you can get it as fast as like maybe 3rd item, 4th item. Ruby, Ionian, Banner, Locket. Probably 4th item. I get it like 5th, but you could get it 4th if you wanted. Okay, so this is kind of the breakdown that I recommend. Plus Nomad's Medallion. And then with Nomads, you can kind of decide late game if you want to go Talisman, or you can sell it and get something else late game. There's no crime in selling this late game, okay? So if you've already made 2,000 gold off a Nomad's Medallion and it's 35 minutes in the game, it's okay to sell it, okay? It's okay to sell it to complete another item. So maybe that's Talisman, but don't feel like you have to get Talisman with this if it's the last item that you get rid of, right? Because you're not going to buy any more items, so you don't need the gold. Like, all you're going to buy are elixirs when you get rid of this, like, 6th item. So, you know, I think sometimes people are just obsessed with don't ever sell gold items, but you can, especially really late in the game. So, yes, you can get Talisman, but there might be other options that could be good as well. So we'll go through these a little bit quicker, hopefully. I know it's going to be like a super long video. There's just no way around it, though. Rakan is so versatile. I get asked about him all the time. He's very difficult to figure out the optimal items, runes, and playstyle for him. He's right up there. He's not quite as tough as Thresh, but he's close. Mechanically, he's not as hard as Thresh, but I would say the decisions to make with him are probably harder than Thresh, especially the itemization decisions. Okay, so other possible items. So one thing that you can go with him that you can't really get with a lot of other tanks, engaged tanks, is Mikael's Crucible. This item is very, very good against hard crowd control, and people will take this against Rakan. So if they see you pick Rakan, and there's, you know, they might pick Morgana, they might pick Ashe, Varus, because they know that if you go in and they crowd control, you're probably dead. But you can rush Mikael's, and Mikael's is not an amazing rush, but it's also not god-awful on Rakan, because with the Ingenious plus Ruby Sightstone. Ingenious plus Ruby Sightstone. It's going to be a 48-second cooldown, just like Redemption. So that means you're going to be able to cleanse people a lot with this. It has great synergy with Redemption. So it has a plus 20% healing and shielding, which is great with Rakan, as we've explained. If you get this with Redemption, that's going to create some massive Redemption heals. It's going to be really nice. It does build out of some stuff that is decent early. I think it's got some... it's basically all fairy charms. I thought this used to have a Reju beat in it, but I guess they changed that. But if you complete the Chalice early on, then you do get a lot of extra base regen. So if you want to rush Mikael's and you get Chalice early, that will help you sustain through some tough lanes. So it's okay. It does give you some magic resist, which is kind of whatever. It gives you the CDR. It's cheap. So, you know, it's not completely, like, amazing to have to rush this item, but especially against something like an Ashe or a Leona or Sejuani, Fiddlesticks, Varus, like against a lot of these champions, it might be good to either rush this or get it second item. So you could go Redemption into Mikael's if you wanted to. Although rushing Mikael's is not awful, especially against Ashe. I mean, just completely removing Ashe's ultimate from the game, basically, with Mikael's. I mean, she's almost a worthless champion if she doesn't have her ult. So there are situations where you would want this item as fast as your first major item. But a lot of times, if you're going to get it, you would get it like second or third big ticket item, so that you have a little bit more synergy, particularly with Redemption. Redemption of this, that's like peanut butter and jelly. That's a really powerful combo, and that sounds delicious. I'm very hungry right now. But anyways, that's definitely an option. Another option is Ardent Censer. Now, this used to be the core item that you would get on Rakan every time, just like everybody, for the past, you know, 5 patches before preseason, but it's changed. It's changed quite a lot. So first of all, it changed because Ardent Censer got nerfed a lot. It got nerfed like 3 or 4 times. So it's not nearly as good as it used to be early on. So they took down the on-hit. Used to be 20. It used to be as high as 35 on-hit healing. Then they reduced it to 20. And now they have reduced it to 5. Now, by the time you complete this, you know, you're going to be level 9 maybe. 8 or 9, so it's still going to go to like 12 on hit, and then it's going to be like 20% attack speed. So it sounds bad looking at 5, but you're never going to have this at level 1. You know, level 9 is more realistic. So that's good. Obviously, he likes all of this. Cooldown reduction, ability power is very strong on him. He has really high AP scaling on all of his healing and shielding abilities. Heal and shield's obviously really good. The mana regen's nice. We talked about a lot of his items don't have that early. The speed is very good. It's still a great bargain. I mean, it's 2,400 gold by itself without any of the other value propositions there. And, you know, at level 18, you get it's just hugely valuable as the game goes on. So it is really nice, but it has been nerfed directly. That's something to keep in mind. Also, a lot of people are moving away from Hurricane champions. So Hurricane has a really powerful interaction with this because each bolt applies this. So when someone like attacks a minion wave with Hurricane, they get 3 times the on-hit healing. And so that allows them to heal through a lot of poke, like Xerath poke or just any other poke, Ziggs poke. They can heal through that a lot because they can just attack a minion wave with Hurricane and just heal a ton. Or in a team fight, obviously, if they're attacking multiple people, they're going to heal a ton, and they're going to apply a lot of the on-hit damage. This is healing and on-hit damage. So it has really powerful interactions with Hurricane. People are not building those champions as much anymore. You don't see as much Kalista and Twitch or Hurricane Varus. But you could see them more. I mean, you might, now that Lethality's nerfed, you might see Varus with Hurricane more. You might see more Twitch. I think Twitch is really, really good. I think he's the first or second best AD carry. Twitch and Vayne are 1 and 1A. But you're still going to see a lot of gens. You're going to see a lot of misfortunes, as we have seen. Tristana doesn't get Hurricane. People are playing Jinx. Jinx does get Hurricane quite a bit, so because of that new elf skin. So this item's really good with Jinx, so if you have a Jinx on your team, you might consider getting it. But you need to measure... Okay, so... I don't remember what my third point was. So it's been nerfed directly. The items that it goes with, like Hurricane, have been nerfed. Oh yeah, I remember what I was going to say. The items such as Hurricane have been nerfed and sort of moved out of the meta over time, over the last year. And then the introduction of Ingenious Hunter, which I keep pounding the table on, why that's so powerful, has no interaction with it. So, you know, you have this really powerful effect, the 60% item active cooldown that's just so good with Banner. It's so good with Redemption, Locket, Mikael's, Talisman. It's so good with all these items, but not with Ardent Censer because there's no active on it. So it has very little synergy, in fact, no synergy with a really powerful interaction in this build. So all 3 of those things make this a less appealing item now than it was before. And a lot of people are still going to keep building this on Rakan because that's what all the guides say to do. That's what a lot of pro players will probably do because they're not going to get Banner as much and they can trust their AD carry. That's the final point I want to make, is if your AD carry is underperforming or if they're just not playing a champion that doesn't build a lot of attack speed, then this is going to be a bad item. Okay, so if you have an 0-3 AD carry in lane, then this is not going to be a good pickup, right? Because this is like using a lot of your resources to go all in on your AD carry, mostly. Now, if you have like a Master Yi or something in the jungle, it's like 5-0, then sure, this could still be good. So if you have Master Yi or Yasuo or, you know, some of these other champions, then it could still be good. It's very powerful with Font of Life. I've already talked about that. So it is a very good item, but I still think it's not an item that you want to buy if your AD carry is underperforming or not playing a champion that's good with it. Certainly not to rush. Maybe you could get it later. Second or third item. But that's a major weakness. So even if they don't get Hurricane, like it's okay on Tristana, even though she doesn't get Hurricane, you know, but it's just so bad on things like Jhin, like Misfortune, like this Poke Varus build, that I just don't think you want to rush it early on. But it is still very, very powerful in the right circumstances. It's just a lot more situational than it used to be. Because it, you know, and a big part of it is it doesn't have the same kind of team fight pressure that a 48-second redemption does, and it doesn't have the same kind of macro pressure that a 48-second banner does. But it's a really good personal stat stick if you have an AD carry who's ahead. So you can kind of feel this out and see, you know, go ahead and get your first couple of items. Your Twitch, you know, gets ahead in lane. They're like up 3 kills. You're like, okay, this guy's pretty good. He positions well. He's got a lot of gold. He's getting the right items. Okay, I think I'm going to hook him up with Ardent. Or you're duoed with an AD carry, and you're like, I know this guy's legit. He's solid. He's going to play Twitch. He's going to play Vayne. He's going to play something that does very well with Ardent. So I know I'm going to buy it. Just, it can still be a really good rush item there, but just random Joe Blow and solo queue who's playing Misfortune or Caitlyn or something, and you're like, I don't know, man. You know, you might want to go for a different item. Okay? So that's something that a lot of people will get. It's very good if you're going for the Revitalize, Ardent Censer, Redemption, Mikael, which is the super shielder healer build. It's really good. You're going to be super squishy with that build, though, so just be careful. You better have someone else who can engage, and you can be the follow-up engage if that's the case. Okay, Talisman. Mentioned it before. It builds out a Nomad's Medallion. Great bargain. I mean, it's 2,200 gold. You're already paying 850 for the Nomads. So you're basically paying 1,350 for this item because you're already priced into it. So that's really nice. This is what I finish off with most of the time. You can get this at any point, really, that you just need a little bit of extra engage or disengage because you're already going to have the Nomads ready. Or anytime you just happen to back with a perfect, you know, 1,350 and you need an immediate power spike. Like maybe you were saving, you wanted Ardent, but your team has to go contest Baron right now. They're about to fight for it. You have 1,400 gold in the bank. Boom, just buy it, use it, fly out of there, and just have a little bit more power for that specific fight. So 24-second CD is absolutely ludicrous. It's an extremely powerful effect. This, if you don't remember the meta for this, like Nomad's Medallion used to be like really overpowered at 45-second crowd 45 seconds active on it, and that was just like a couple of seasons ago. And then they nerfed it to 1 minute, and no one played it anymore. So now that it's 24 seconds, that's really good. Not much has changed about it, I don't think. I mean, I'm kind of curious. I know we're really late on time, but I'm just kind of curious. I want to look at this. When did they nerf the crap out of that thing? The cost got... They've buffed it a lot. The cost got reduced on it. I think they gave it some more armor. Okay, they changed the tooltip there. Lowered the cost a lot. Still lowering the cost. Still lowering the cost. Okay, they changed the stats around there. I'm wondering when they changed the... Here we go, here we go. Okay, so that was 522, so 2 seasons ago. Okay, it went from 40 seconds to 60 seconds. And not much has changed. So it's 2,200 gold, and it's been floating around that amount for a long time. Yeah, they gave it Point Runner, like they changed some stuff on it. But the big one was they changed the cooldown from 40 seconds to 60 seconds. That's a really big deal. That's a 50% increase. Well, now it's down to 24 seconds. That's so crazy. And it's good on Rakan because it helps the team engage. As I mentioned up above, a big part of Rakan is your team has to be there. If you engage and no one's close enough for you to E to get back out, you're going to die and you're going to look silly. You're going to get some question mark pings on you. So having your team engage helps. If you get Righteous Glory, which some people will get, and we'll talk about very briefly here in a second, if you get Righteous Glory, yeah, you can run in and engage and you're going to slow them, but that's not going to make your team get there any faster. So they're just going to turn around and kill you. Because you're still going to have no way to get out of there with your E. So it's good to get your team to engage. And because it affects your team and you, whether you're running towards them or away from them, it helps you run away from dangerous situations. It helps your team run away. Helps your AD carry kite. You know, if your AD carry is Varus and he's getting chased by Olaf, just pop Talisman on him. It's going to help him get away a little bit faster. Or Shyvana, who's super popular right now. Or Nasus. He tries to come at your AD carry, wither him, and just run him down. You just cleanse the wither with your Mikaels and then pop your Talisman. Watch your AD carry kite and kill him. So, and Mikaels does cleanse wither. Someone was debating me on stream the other night about that. Wither is a slow and it gets cleansed. The only thing that Mikael doesn't cleanse are suppresses and things that don't have crowd control attached to them. So it won't cleanse like a Zed ult. It won't cleanse a Fizz ult. I don't think it cleanses Fizz ult. Not sure about that one because that does have a slow component. And I think they've changed that over the years. But I know it doesn't cleanse like a Zed ult. But it does cleanse Wither. Okay? So, anyways. And that gives you great movement for banners. So now you can run down, drop banner, and then Talisman back up to your team. And by the time you get back to your team and you're ready to fight, Talisman's going to be up again. So, it's really, really nice. Now, the double Raptor Cloak feels bad because you're getting Point Runner twice, but you're already getting so much gold efficiency out of that item. You know, you're already priced into it for 850 gold anyways, that losing that passive, you know, or double dipping that passive to where it's not that effective it's okay, you know. I think it's okay most of the time. It's goofy, but it's already so gold efficient because you get so much gold off of coin anyways. I think it's fine. Zeke's Convergence is kind of a weird one. A lot of people won't get this, but I think it's because a lot of people don't understand what it does. To be fair, it has terrible phrasing on it, and it's just really confusing. Like, there should never be an ability that's like a novel to read. Okay? Stats are fine. It's 102%, so the baseline stats are good. These are all good stats. Basically, almost the same thing as Banner. You get 60 armor, 30 magic resist, 10% CD. That's exactly the same. Just the difference is instead of the health regen, you get mana, which is good. I mean, flat mana is actually pretty good on Rakan later in the game. Okay, so what's the difference then? And it's a similar cost. It's like 50%, or it's like 50 more gold. Basically, the best way to understand this is it gives your AD carry 25% on hit damage for 10 seconds. That's whenever you use your ult. That's the best way to think of it. So when you engage as Rakan, you press R, you WN, whoever you put this on, your AD carry, or like a Shyvana or Master Yi, just someone who's going to auto attack a lot, they get 25% on hit damage. Now, I don't know how that interacts with crit. So if you're, you know, Twitch crits somebody for 1,000, I don't know if it does 1250 on that. It might just be on your, I suspect it's probably just your base AD. So if you have 200 base AD, it's going to do, you know, 50 extra on hit damage every time. But it might interact with crit. I don't know. It does interact with Hurricane, just like Ardent Censer does. So if you have a Hurricane user like a Twitch, then each one of those bolts is going to do 25% of your AD on that bolt. So it's doing an extra 50 damage per bolt, which is really good. So it does give you a slow. If the AD carry auto attacks the person that you're slowing, you do an extra like 40, the little slow around you does an extra 40 damage per second to each champion that's around you. So you do a little bit of incidental damage, but you're not going to be sticking close to people with this most of the time. Unless you're kiting like a tank or something. If there's an Olaf that's like running at your AD carry, yeah, you're going to get that extra little bit of damage against him. But for the most part, and the slow is very nice for Leandre's users. So if you engage, pop your Zekes, and you get that slow on people, it is going to help your like your Talia or your Rumble or these other champions do extra damage because you got them slowed. Although they're already going to be crowd controlled by Charm, you know, the slow will interact with Leandries a little bit more. It's a great synergy with Hurricane, Ginsu's, Ardent Censer, all of these things. Any kind of double hit thing is going to be good. Double strike with Master Yi. All that stuff's really good. Early mana and CDR is good. But I would only buy this if your AD carry is very good and ahead. So it's similar to Ardent Censer. I would get Ardent before this a lot of the time, unless you need a bit of tankiness. That's sort of the difference here, is if you need tankiness, if you're afraid you're going to get blown up when you engage, but you also want a steroid for your AD carry, then Zeke's is a good option. And you can go both. So you go Ardent Censer. Let's say you have a Twitch. It's like 4-0 in lane. You're like, okay, I'm going to just go all in on this dude. I want to get Ardent Censer and I want to get Zeke's Convergence. So then he gets the double hitter. So he gets the extra attack speed off of Ardent. And then with that attack speed, he's going to be hitting them more for the extra 25% on hit damage. So that's really nice. Now, I don't know what on hit is worth. I can look. It's a certain amount on hit effects. I'm trying to think, what does on hit? Oh, this doesn't build out. Boy, the Rune King has on hit, I think. Okay, here we go. Now it's on hit magic damage instead of physical damage, so it'll have a slightly different valuation. But on hit looks like it's worth, let's see. If you're gonna get 50, let's say they have 200 AD when you get this, it's gonna be like a 1200 gold value. It's pretty decent. I mean, not like Ardent Censer buff. You're only gonna be able to buff one person, whereas Ardent can buff a lot of people. That's still pretty good. I mean, it's like you're putting an extra BF sword in your AD carry's pocket, give or take, depending on, you know, a lot of factors. If they have a Hurricane, it's like you're putting 3 BF swords in their pocket. But you know, either way, it's a nice boost, good baseline stats, nice tankiness, good boost for your AD carry. Probably go Ardent rather than this most of the time, but if you want to double down, if you want the double buff, you can do that. Okay, Knight's Vow. And we got to end here. Knight's Vow is something that I think is very overrated on Rakan. A lot of people will get this item. I talk about this in my Banner of Command video, so be sure to check that out if you want the stat breakdown. But basically, the tank stats are very similar to Banner and Zeke's. It's the same gold valuation. The bonus health off of Knight's Vow does scale with Guardian and Locket, though, which is a really nice interaction, although you have to be near your partner to make it worthwhile. So there's that. But even if you're near your partner, it's basically the same kind of valuation as Banner and Zeke's. The thing with Rakan is you only get a 6% damage transferal and healing because Rakan is ranged. Okay, so this is a big difference from someone like Leona or Alistar, who gets Knight's Vow. So you're only redirecting 6% damage from your AD carry. So I know a lot of people think, oh, Knight's Vow, like that's this huge, like massive, like defensive steroid for your AD carry. No, it's not. If they have 2,000 HP at 6%, you're only basically giving them 120 extra effective health because you're only blocking 6% damage. Now, if they have a lot of lifesteal, you know, maybe that gets a little bit better. But it's, you know, it's basically like having 120 extra health. So, which is a 320 gold value. That's not even a ruby crystal. So, you know, it's a really dinky gold value. It does go down to 36-second cooldown with Ingenious Hunter, so you can put it on a bunch of different people. However, it doesn't have a lot of utility. Like, that's it. You're blocking 6% extra damage off of whoever you target. Like, yeah, you're going to get healed a little bit off of the passive as well, but you're going to be taking damage also from the person that's getting that stuff redirected. So it's, in a sense, kind of evening out. So you're basically just, like, removing 6% damage for the most part. I mean, that is such a weak effect when you think about just how powerful, just how much I've been pounding the table on, just how insane things like Banner of Command are, or Redemption, or Locket with this build, or even Mikael's, like how good that is with this build. Talisman. Like, there are so many things that are just so much better than this most of the time because of the 6%. If it was 12%, then we could talk about that. That would be a little bit more value. It'd be at least a 640 gold value, and that would be more legit, right? That would basically give him 240 health. But it's just not enough. It's not nearly as much of a defensive steroid as people think. If you really want to get a defensive steroid like this to protect your AD carry from all-in damage, then just go Ruby, Sightstone, Locket. It's going to be much better at doing that. So yeah, I really don't think that this is going to be the ticket. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It does have synergy with Locket, with Ruby, and you'll see a lot of people get Ruby plus Locket plus Knight's Vow. Those do have some synergies, but I still think that going Redemption or Banner is just going to be probably better than this item most of the time. Righteous Glory is another thing people like to get. It's only 100% gold efficient, and it just doesn't give enough utility. It costs too much gold. It's 2650. That's very expensive. You're paying a lot for mana. So like, yeah, 250 mana is okay on Zeke's because it has really good other utility, properties to it. But this has mana plus base health regen. Those are both kind of weak stats for all ends late game. Like having one or the other is okay, especially for the early game, but having both on the same item just feels really bad. And basically you get to run in for 4 seconds and slow people when you engage. Rakan has no problem engaging. You will get on people as Rakan, so it's not a problem. Like on someone like a Malachi who doesn't really have ways to run in and who doesn't have access to Talisman usually, yeah, it's good. So is it good on like Malachi or Rammus or Sejuani? Sure. These champions really benefit a lot from that movement speed, and they don't have the Talisman option. But the thing is, Rakan has the Talisman option. It's very good on him because he's already going to get coin. So, and a big kicker here is your team doesn't follow you. So if like Rammus runs in a little bit ahead of the team and starts the fight, that's fine because he's so tanky. They can beat on him for, 3 or 4 seconds while everyone catches up, or Sejuani or Malachi. They're not going to die instantly. With Rakan, if your team's not there and you go too far ahead, you're going to die instantly. So that's the issue, is that you're already going to have Talisman, or Talisman is an available option that's just so much better for Rakan specifically than Righteous Glory is. And it's much cheaper. It's effectively only 1350 gold because you're already going to have Nomads for 850 anyways. So yeah, don't ever go Righteous. That's a huge, huge mistake, I think, on Rakan, when Talisman is just such a better buy. I mean, some people might go like, I had the Watchers plus Righteous Glory. It just sounds disgusting. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. If you want this kind of effect, just go Righteous Glory. Also, this is a longer cooldown. It's a 90-second cooldown. So yeah, it does get the benefit. It does go down to 36 seconds, but Talisman's 24 seconds. So I wouldn't do it. And I mean, you could argue, but it doesn't have Raptor Cloak effect in it, right? And you're wasting so much of the value of Talisman on Raptor Cloak. It's like, yeah, that's true, but I mean, the defensive stats are better on Righteous Glory. Like, this does have a lot of base regen. That's overkill on the base regen. Righteous Glory does have more armor and magic resist combined, so it has is it not? No, it has, does it have 30 armor? I mean, I just looked at it. 30 armor. Okay, so they both have 10% CDR. You're getting 15 more armor, which is the 300 gold value. This gets 400 health. I mean, the stats are better, but the thing is, like, you're already priced in a Talisman. Like, it's almost literally double the gold to get Righteous Glory. Like, Talisman is 1350. This is 2650. It's almost double the gold for it. So yeah, the stats are better. They're just not so much better that it's worth taking up an extra item slot and costing a lot of extra gold. Unless you want to sell your gold item in order to get Righteous, which, just trust me, go Talisman. It just makes so much more sense on Rakan. Athene's Unholy Grail. It looks good. AP's good. It has good synergy with the healing build if you want to go, the Redemption Mikael's Ardent Censer and finish off with Athene's. I just think you're going to be too squishy if you do this. It's very risky. It doesn't have any good utility on it. You do get extra healing if you do damage, but Rakan doesn't do a lot of damage. So if you're really far ahead and you already have the completed Redemption Ardent build, you could maybe think about this, but I think it's just too cute. You're just going to be too squishy and you don't get enough out of it to do that. Warmog's cute, overkill on the personal tankiness. Once again, it's expensive. Similar to Righteous Glory. You know, it's okay, but I would rather have more utility. I'd rather have better teamfight presence. I'd rather have better macro presence with something like Banner. There's just a lot of other options that are better for Rakan. And Caesar Up Portal is something that's okay. You do get 48-second CD, which is great for macro. You have some nice armor and magic resist. 2,700 gold is very expensive, though, especially on an item that doesn't have CDR and doesn't have HP, which are the two most important stats for Rakan, arguably. And if you already have Banner, it's overkill on the macro. So you're not going to need that. And then finally, we'll just end it here. Best matchups: Nami, Karma, Thresh, Braum, Xerath. Anything that you can that has mild poke in lane where you're going to outscale them, or just things that you can that aren't going to pressure you as much in lane. Thresh can pressure, but that's kind of a skill matchup. You can outplay Thresh, and you're going to outscale him. You're going to outscale Braum. Any tank that's just going to sit there and just have a farm off, you're probably going to outscale him. Except for maybe Taric. Taric's a little bit trickier. I mean, usually you can kill somebody before a Taric ult goes off, but I don't know. Taric's iffy. Taric's probably like an even matchup. And Xerath, like, you can get poked out in lane, but you can also hard engage onto those types of AP supports and kill him. And he's best with Xayah, obviously, because he gets all that extra synergy with her. Callista is really good. She's a Hurricane user, so she's great with the Ardent Censer. And, you know, she can throw you into the fight, and then you can ult, and you just have a lot of good synergy with her kit. And then Varus is really good, too, especially if he goes for the Ginsu's Hurricane build, which I still think is the best build. I hate that tier build. So I think that's good. And then just the crowd control and utility of Varus. You know, the fact that he can ult somebody, like when you ult him, he can ult him, and then you're probably going to blow him up. I think it's a pretty good combination. And then Twitch is another one that's excellent because he's going to be a Hurricane user. So you can protect him kind of in lane, and just whenever you engage into a fight, he can open up from really far away and just completely evaporate a team. So Twitch is really, really good. And really good with Rakan as well. Worst matchups: Leona, Tom, Malz, Morg, Veigar, Maokai. Common theme: stuff with a lot of crowd control or ways to negate your engage. So Leona is brutal. She has so much crowd control, so much damage. She will definitely kill you a lot. So you need to ban Leona 100% in this meta if you want to play Rakan. Tom Kench, good, but I still think you can outscale him. He's really annoying. You can't engage. It's going to turn into a farm off, but you can do all right with him. Malzahar, point click lockdown on you, really bad. Morgana, Black Shield Q is going to be rough. Veigar is really rough. Then Maokai is really rough because he has so much crowd control. Okay. And he can just, like, if you go in and try to engage, he just has so much peel and disengage. It's just like, he's just a quagmire of crowd control. It's so difficult to do anything when he's in a fight. Okay, but that's going to be it. Really long guide. Sorry about that. There are just so many details about it. I'll have good timestamps in there for you. Hopefully it doesn't scare too many people away. But it's going to be it. Thanks very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.